time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a special Thursday noontime edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today. An inspiring 24 hours. The confirmation of Tulsi Gabbard.
Getting tired of winning.
Yeah, the confirmation of Tulsi Gabbard is a huge victory for everybody. I mean, everybody, no matter what you think, when you thought it, what opinions you might have now, what opinions you may have had years ago. You could be pro-Israel, you could be anti-Israel, you could be pro-war, you could be anti-war, you could be pro-universal health care, anti-universal health care. You could be pro-gay marriage. You could be anti. I mean, you could be whatever.
You could be for the gays, against the gays. You could be gay yourself. You could be not gay. You could be trans. You could be anti-trans. You could be a trans basher, a gay basher. You could be reactionary, right-wing maniac. You could be for universal health care, against universal health care. She's on every side of every issue. No matter what you believe, Tulsi's got something for you.
That's right. You have representation in the Trump administration right now, no matter what. No matter what. So that's amazing. That's amazing. Congratulations to everybody. All right. Well, we have
pretty soon we'll have a renowned children's book author running the FBI.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
It's Morning in America, baby.
Morning in America. We're so back. We're so back.
We are so back.
All right. Well, you know who's not so back is the Democratic Party. So we're gonna start the show talking about them a little bit. All right, folks, we're going to jump right in. We got plenty to do today, so we're not going to waste much time since it's Thursday. Thursday is our Friday. Thanks for being here, everybody. Great crowd to start this show. 656 strong in the YouTube chat, 492 in the Rumble chat. Please smash that like button. Please smash that follow button over on Rumble, that subscribe button over on YouTube. We even got a couple of Twitchers in the crowd. Do what you have to do on Twitch to get more people to watch. We have no idea how to work Twitch. Yeah, I mean, absolutely
we can learn from our new friend Blakely.
That's right. That's right. Blakely knows Twitch.
She's a lot more technologically sophisticated than we are, that's for sure.
Yes. Yes, that is a good idea.
She knows of these other platforms of which we have heard.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I have literally no idea how to work Twitch at all. Zero. No. I've tried figuring it out. I can't.
I got stuck with the millennial who doesn't know technology.
I don't know anything about Twitch whatsoever. All right, folks. So we're going to get started. So we've been talking a lot about Doge recently, and the PodSave boys have a little Doge envy. They recently did an episode where they talked about, hey, when we worked in government, we were close to the president. We'd have liked to get things done at this pace, but we couldn't. We couldn't. And isn't that a shame? Let's take a listen.
Memos, and it's like, the young people, Gen Z, they like Doge and what Elon's doing because they see government as sclerotic and inefficient, and they like the move fast and break things ethos, and they want to get stuff done, and they like the results. And it's like, yes, of course, we all want that. We all know that government is slow. We all know that government can be inefficient. We all know that the bureaucracy can be bloated. We all worked in the fucking White House. We tried to reorganize the government. We tried to find efficiency. It's hard to do.
And honestly, some of this is pretty annoying because it's some of the stuff we should have done.
Right, yeah.
You could do some of this.
You just got to talk Gen Z to them. You're like, I could dig these Doja Cats. Okay?
Oh, my God. That was horrible.
Oh, no.
That was fucking horrible.
They got good vibes.
Jesus
they're just
Christ.
not going about it the right way.
Yeah, you got to throw a no cap on the end of that.
No cap.
But anyway.
Great comedy over there, of course. You know, I have to say, the irony of these Obama alum talking like this is that Barack Obama was the last and probably will be the last president to ever actually have the ability to reform government through constitutional means, within constitutional frameworks, within constitutional bounds. Because Barack Obama had a 67% approval rating in February of 2009 and a filibuster-proof 60-seat majority in the Senate. So when Favreau starts talking about, and whoever his minion there is, I don't know all their names, I only know Favreau. But when he starts talking about how, we tried to get things done in government, and then the other guy chimes in, yeah, what's annoying is we'd like to do a lot of this same thing. The reason it's being done this way now is because you guys had a chance to do it in a way that abides by constitutional norms and rules, and you did not do it. If you tried to do it, you could have. Think about what Trump has been able to do just these first few weeks with a 50% favorability rating and 53 seats in the Senate. He got Tulsi and RFK through the confirmation process with a 50% approval rating and 53 seats in the Senate. When you look back at Barack Obama's opportunity in 2009, a 67% approval rating and 60 seats in the Senate. The fact that that government remained paralyzed is because Barack Obama chose to keep the government paralyzed. And he touted that. He touted what a beacon of constitutional understanding he was, because he taught constitutional law. He actually bragged about the fact that democracy is slow and messy, and people who are asking us to move too fast.
But it bends towards justice.
Exactly. The people who are insisting that we move faster and break things, which was not a motto at the time, but would soon become the ethos of big tech, and now apparently, to a certain extent, Gen Z, he deliberately chose not to do that. And that's why it's being done this way right now. And they're missing that point on purpose, just like Barack Obama decided he would forego progress on purpose.
Yeah, this is the West Wingification of the liberal class, right? What did the West Wing present you as? With smart, very well-educated, very well-intentioned people wrestling not with how you win left victories, but with how you win compromised legislation by working with other people in your class with slightly different beliefs about government.
Exactly.
That's what it was about. That is still celebrated by what's left of the liberal class. They still think that was the greatest show ever on TV about the ideals of politics. That is the height of their vision of politics, because as you pointed out many times, this is a politics for people who have the kinds of problems they don't need government to solve.
Right.
I know very wealthy lib who was running around talking about how amazing it was that she didn't have to pay for a breast pump because of Obama.
Right.
They can afford for that to be the totality of their victories.
Right.
And it's a symbolic one, because you're talking about people who could afford one.
They could afford it if they had to.
They could afford it, but look, hey, things got done. See? I didn't have to pay for that breast pump. Thank you, Obama. Thank you, Obama. What do the conservatives have to say now? Right. Obama, that's what's so tragic about that moment. That was really the great betrayal. That was the moment that the country really almost inexorably went completely off the rails. Here's a moment where you have this supermajority. You've elected a black president. Now they have, and it's not an accident that it is at that moment that all of a sudden this kind of MLK vision of race relations that had kind of been the consensus of, non-virulently racist people for half a century by that time, all of a sudden you start getting this very divisive anti-racism because they could not afford for people to feel that those problems, if not completely solved, I don't know if you could ever completely solve them, had gotten to a point where we could talk about other things. Well, what are the other things people are going to start to talk about then? They're going to start to talk about economics.
Well, they did. The Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street.
And that's what happened. We had somebody who, it was a very interesting comment. I saved it when we did the thing about the trans dance troops in Bangladesh, and I drew a parallel, like, what do you think they didn't do PSYOPs here? And they told me they were at Occupy Wall Street, and they started getting these LGBTQ activists who started showing up and being very divisive and demanding that all of the attention go to their causes. And when anybody would speak about just maintaining working class solidarity, you'd get 10 of them would get up at the microphone and attack anybody who said that. And that is very plausible to me based on what I've seen. And at this point, with a lot of what's coming out by whatever means about what the intelligence services have done overseas, yeah, I think it would be very naive to think that was not a big part of what they did here. The Democrats at that point were in a position where they couldn't blame the Republicans. So
Right.
what could they do? They had to divert all the left energy into identity politics in order to avoid a real conversation about economics. That was the moment that Trump was born, the Obama presidency. You cannot curse Barack Obama enough. He cannot take enough blame for the hellscape we live in today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the evidence of that starts with the math. I just said, here, I will put it in a way that crystallizes it. Donald Trump, with a 50% approval rating and a slim Senate majority, got Lindsey Graham to vote for Tulsi Gabbard.
Right.
If Donald Trump, with a 50% approval rating, can get Lindsey Graham to vote for Tulsi Gabbard, you're telling me Barack Obama, with a 67% approval rating, couldn't get Joe Lieberman to support a public option? You're telling me he really couldn't do that? That was just impossible? Come on. Barack Obama refused to wield power in the way that Trump is wielding power. And
Citibank
they sit there and they play dumb about that. Well, hey, I mean, we would have loved to have done something back when we had the entire country at our back and the entire Senate, basically the entire Senate at our disposal because it was a filibuster-proof majority. We just couldn't do it. We just couldn't do it. What a shame. Woe is us.
I very often feel like we're living in the Pottersville of It's a Wonderful Life. Like, George didn't get saved in the version we live in.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well said. Good point, Charles. It's a quote a Pod Save fan. All right, folks, let's talk some more about the Democrats and their non-response to the DOGE cuts that are coming down the pike. So here is Chuck Schumer. What a fighter. What a fighter. Chuck Schumer says, everyone knows there's waste in government. That should be cut. All right, so here we go.
It's simple. Everyone knows there's waste in government and should be cut. But DOGE is using a meat axe, and they're cutting things that are efficient and effective. I was in Albany and Syracuse on Monday talking at community health centers. Many of them have had their funds cut temporarily. Some even hasn't been restored yet. And they're the most efficient healthcare providers around. Take AID. Maybe there's some programs they don't like. But most people agree that PEPFAR was extremely effective and cost effective. Most people would want to see us continue our fight in Central Africa against Ebola so it doesn't come here. And so the bottom line is very simple. Okay? If you want to make cuts, then you do it through a debate in Congress, not lawlessly by just implementing it.
All right, there's the Senate leader.
And the problem, as we've said many times, is you can't. You can't. Yes, what they are doing is undoubtedly illegal. in many areas, in many ways. But the idea that you would go to Congress and you would get this solved through democratic means, it's ridiculous. There's no way that would happen. That's why people are supporting this.
Of course. So that's the Senate leader. Now let's talk a little bit more about Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. So this was a piece that came out in the New York Times a few days ago. I'm getting more and more furious. Chuck Schumer is changing directions, says the New York Times. I asked Chuck Schumer what Americans want from Democrats right now. They want us to beat Trump and stop this shit, he told me. And that's what we're doing. It was a welcome sign of life. For 3 weeks now, President Trump and the world's richest man have ransacked from within a democracy that took 250 years to build. The country faces a second crisis, an opposition party that doesn't seem to know how to respond. With no obvious party standard bearer, the job of leading Washington Democrats in the second Trump era has fallen largely to Mr. Schumer and Representative Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leaders of the Senate and House. It's been a rocky start. Mr. Schumer and Mr. Jeffries are seasoned deal makers, but in the minority and facing a president bent on laying waste to the very meaning of the U.S. Congress, both men have struggled to shed the familiar rhythms of business as usual. On Monday, they sent letters to congressional Democrats about using litigation and oversight inquiries to fight Mr. Trump's agenda. There was some substance, but it's hard to convey that America is in peril through a letter. Last week, they talked up a bill from House Democrats aimed at barring Elon Musk from having access to the Treasury Department's payment system, even though it was clear, at least to state attorneys general who have sued, that Mr. Musk's access violated the Constitution as well as existing laws, including the Privacy Act of 1974. At times, Mr. Jeffries has sounded like someone who has given up. What leverage do we have? He told reporters at his weekly news conference on Friday. They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's their government. Here is the video of that moment.
Figure out what leverage we actually have. What leverage do we have? They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's their government. What leverage do we have?
So
very inspiring.
Yeah, very inspiring. They act as if the only way to wield power is to work within the institutions. You know, when we were doing the post-duopoly show, Nick made a great point. He says Democrats don't defend people; they only defend institutions. Right? That's why a lot of the protest about this has been, you know, in support of USAID, or now I'm sure they'll have some, you know, protesting in support of the NED, since that's next on the chopping block. But they don't actually run to people. The answer is to expose the negative impacts that these cuts have on ordinary people. You do not defend the institutions, you defend the people who at the time appear to be collateral damage because the media is putting all the focus on USAID. But really, it's ordinary people that are going to bear most of the brunt of these cuts. Now, Chuck Schumer mentioned that he was in a community health center, so local media did cover this. Schumer calls for answers as community health centers face uncertainty. So this is from a local station. U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer is criticizing the impact of President Donald Trump's funding freeze and the Elon Musk-led Department of Government Efficiency as community health centers look for answers. Schumer visited Syracuse's community health center on Monday to call for an explanation from the Department of Health and Human Services. Hello, this is the Department of Health and Human Services. How may I help you? As of today, he said the fallout from the Trump administration's funding freeze.
Did he get confirmed?
He did, just about a half hour before he went live. Yep. He said the fallout from the Trump administration's funding freeze has caused mass confusion for small healthcare centers, which have been left with funding delays and shuttered portals. We need answers as to what happened, Schumer said. Why were these funds cut off? I don't know. I don't think there's an explanation other than helping the billionaires with their tax cuts, but why were they shut off? Why can't I read today? Schumer's concern turns to the expiration of the community health care center's main federal funding program, next month. He placed blame on Musk for tanking a bipartisan spending agreement last year. We need a commitment from everybody, Democrats and Republicans, not to listen to DOGE, not to listen to Elon Musk, but to fully fund our healthcare centers by March 14th, Schumer said. Also, in Virginia, community health centers close over federal funding access. Here's a video that Russ put me onto here. So this is a veteran who is, for some crazy reason, not allowed to volunteer at the VA hospital now because of these cuts.
This probably isn't going to matter to most Americans, but it absolutely applies to my fellow veterans. I just found out a few minutes ago from a buddy that due to President Musk's hiring freeze on January 20th, we are no longer permitted to volunteer with the VA. They've shut down not only the paid appointments, as they have across the entire government, but they've shut down what they call without compensation appointments, which is the volunteer work. So if you were planning on volunteering for the VA this year, can't do it. Against the law now. So there you have it.
All right. Now, here is a farmer who has gone kind of viral here. I won't read the snarky text of this tweet since I don't think the right approach is to mock these people, but rather
Which
to
they're dying to do.
Use this, right, as a teachable moment. So let's take a look at this guy who was knee-deep into a farmer's contract with the federal government, only to get stiffed when they refuse to pay out what he needs to complete his work.
I might lose my farm because of the government. I got in bed with the government. I was promoting getting in bed with the government because I thought it was a good idea. So, NRCS, conservation planning. So they had a program out there called the EQIP program. And what the EQIP program is it's cost sharing on stuff like fencing, different seedings, water lines, waters, wells, and stuff like that to better conserve farmland for agricultural use. So I thought it was a great program. We got a contract with them for $240,000. So we signed a contract with them for $240,000, and we have bought different types of material. We've gotten paid out on some of it, but I now have $80,000 worth of material and signed contracts for labor that are going to install the water lines in the upcoming few weeks and months. And with that being said, they called me today and said, hey, I know we have this signed contract. We're reneging on it. We're not going to pay out on it. What do you mean you're not going to pay out on it? So I've got all this stuff bought, and whenever I install it, you're not going to pay out. We had this contract. I made business decisions based on this contract. So now I have $80,000 out of my pocket that I didn't have to spend. So the $80,000 that we have is supposed to go to our farm loan in the fall. If we don't have that money, that's our hay money, that's our farm money, our farm payment money. If we don't have that money, we will lose this farm. And the only way that I can think to get around it is we sell some cows. And if I sell cows now to make the payment, to make that payment, I'm not going to be able to make the payment in the fall because the cows are calculated in my payment in the fall. So because I got in bed with the government, I spent money based on the contract that we signed. They're reneging on it. I'm just screwed. And unless they lift this pause on payment, I'm going to lose this farm. So they have told me that the best thing that they can tell me is get in touch with the congressmen and congresswomen and see if I can get something done about this. So I've reached out to Ann Wagner's office. That's the congresswoman of Missouri. I'm hoping that something comes out of that, but I don't have very high hopes of it. Hopefully this is a temporary ban on payment of that, but I don't understand how you can sign a contract and then just renege on that contract. I do not understand that at all. And if something doesn't change, we are going to lose this farm, and I am extremely stressed about it.
Don't blame you, sir. In fact, his story went so viral that CNN picked up this video, and they asked Congressman Jason Smith about him and stories and cases like him.
It's a signed contract. It's a legally binding contract. They're not backing out on it. They're not paying out on it. So it puts me in a bind because I've made business decisions based on that contract.
What do you say to Skylar Holden and people in that predicament?
What I would say is Congress, that the government needs to do a better job at working for the American people. Too often, it seems like the American people's working for the government, and the whole purpose of freezing and putting a hold on everything right now is to review to make sure it's working the way that Congress and the executive is supposed to implement. It's unfortunate that this is the case. I've been talking with several farmers that have been experiencing this and trying to help guide them through this process. But it's all going to work out. Right now, it's a little bit disruptive, but that's what this administration promised whenever they were coming to Washington,
so
is
when
that they would be disruptive and look at ways to make the government more efficient and working for the people.
Yeah, no, they promised this. This was a real staple of the campaign, that they were going to screw over farmers midway through hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of contracts, that they were going to make it difficult for veterans to volunteer at their VA hospitals, that they were going to shutter and or slow down and grind to a halt community health centers. Yeah, this is absolutely what they ran on. This is what the American people voted for. See, this is how you exercise leverage when you're in the minority. So to Hakeem Jeffries, once again here,
figure out what leverage we actually have.
What leverage you actually have are the people who are being hurt by the policy. And in this case, it's not a policy. It is a coup. It is a takeover of the government by oligarchic tech bro billionaires. The people who are hurt by that, they are your leverage. So you do not have the numbers now in Congress to stop this from happening, but you do have the power to make them pay a price for doing it. That's what politics is. According to this logic, well, when not enough people voted for us, so I guess we just can't do anything, and maybe people will vote for us next time. I mean, that is completely impotent. It is impotent and weak on purpose. That is how useless these people are. You point to the pain that this is causing ordinary people and that it will continue to cause exponentially. They are going to come for, mark my words, your Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, disability payments. They've already come at these farmers canceling their contracts. You know who hasn't had their contracts fucked with by the government? Elon Musk. State Department plans
I was almost going to cover that today.
Yes. State Department plans $400 million purchase of armored Tesla cyber trucks. So he's not getting his money fucked with. They're not reneging on those contracts.
And just a footnote on that, after Drop Site News, they broke that story. It said Tesla on the spreadsheet on the website.
Right.
They changed it to armored vehicles. They took Tesla out of the spreadsheet.
Oh, wow.
There's your transparency for you.
There's your transparency, exactly. So that's your leverage. You see what I'm doing? You can make that case. There are how many hundreds of you in Congress, in the Senate? Every single Democrat at every elected level, from Congress to the Senate, to the governor's houses, to the state assembly's houses, you need to go out and find people in your district, like some of the people who we just featured, and you need to go and you need to have rallies and organizing sessions with them every week and get these stories into the media every single week, as often as you possibly can. If hundreds of people do that over and over and over again, you will start to see you have a little bit more leverage. This congressman here, he says, this isn't the only person he's hearing this from. He's hearing this from multiple farmers who are like, wait a minute, where's our money? Right? So that's your leverage. That's your leverage. But Democrats do not think this way. They only think in terms of how can we manipulate the institutions from the inside to tweak outcomes that we want. They have no grasp of mass politics. They have no concept of rallying the public. That whole approach to politics has been systematically uninstalled from the Democratic Party mindset over the course of really the past almost 100 years. I mean, you think FDR would have handled this the way Hakeem Jeffries? Oh, I don't have the votes, so I guess, what can we do? What can we do? We're in the minority. Yes, you don't have enough votes right now. You know how you go out and gain votes? You go out and prosecute the case against the opposition.
Right.
Dumbass. One to put a button on this, and Russ sent this to me because David Sirota has blocked the Do Dissidents account.
Has he?
Yeah. There's a strong argument.
What did you say to David Sirota?
We didn't say anything to him. We did that segment. We made fun of him a little bit. Maybe he got wind of it. Who knows?
Which one?
During a campaign about how you should vote for Democrats to disempower the Democratic establishment, right? Remember that?
Oh, right. You think
there's a strong argument
what a pussy.
Yeah. There's a strong argument that if we didn't really, I mean, we weren't nasty. We just, criticized at this point. Anyway.
That's what I'm saying. We never went hard at Sirota.
Anyway, sorry. So maybe somebody send this to him and he'll unblock me so I could read his stuff again. There's a strong argument that if every single Dem Party lifer in D.C., every politician, staffer, advocate, think tanker, media influencer, pundit, etc., just resigned, it would actually be better for party renewal and the world and would certainly not be worse than it is right now. An entire generation of the Democrats' professional political class has made a great living in the Capitol, absolutely failing to prevent, and in many cases actually facilitating, what we're now living through. It's time to just say that out loud and admit it. Well, it's been time. It's been time, but no lies detected. Go ahead.
Yeah. They do not even have the rhetoric of class and economic oriented politicking. They just don't. And the reason that people are cheering this on in the way that they are is that this is the oligarchic class emptying out the drawers of the corporatists and showing all the corruption, all their dirty underwear to the public. And of course, everybody's cheering it. They can think of no other response than to try to defend the corporatist institutions that are being exposed. You could not take a worse approach than to try to defend what's being exposed. What you need to say right now is, yes, that's terrible, but they're in no position to say that with any credibility because they're the ones who created that system. They are very much the heirs to that system. They are very much the supporters of that system. What a lot of people, I think, at this moment don't understand is that this is, Chris Hedges did an interview where he put this very well. He's very good at summing up these kinds of broad macro forces underlying these kinds of events. And he said, what you're seeing is the oligarch class taking over from the corporatists. Now, the corporatists like to have stability because they sell goods overseas. They want stable trade deals and relations with other countries because their wealth depends on that kind of stability. For these oligarchs, they want monopolistic enterprises where everybody becomes what Varoufakis calls a cloud serf, where everyone's paying a rent to them for services. They get rid of the post office. Now you pay a fee. You pay a monthly fee for postal services. They don't.
Hedges called that toll booth capitalism. Yeah.
Right. They don't need the kinds of agreements, the kind of stability, the kind of cooperation that the corporatists did. But the corporatists, in order to maintain their status quo, did a lot of things like U.S. aid, where you send in these psyops to control these countries to make sure nothing destabilizes that system. Now, these guys are coming in, destabilizing that system, showing you to some extent, not completely, how that system works and what the sins of the corporatists have been, and who's not going to cheer that on. Of course. I mean, I cheer it on. It's a lot of people who have been fighting organizations like USAID for a very long time, of course, are cheered to see that. Now, some are saying, some who are more conscious of what these people actually are saying, you know what? It's great that they're exposing all this and emptying it out. In the end, that's a net good, and we can fight them on the other things. Maybe. I think that's naive. I think it is good that they're emptying all this out. But I think you cannot aid and abet them by only focusing on that. You need to tell people why they're doing this and what they plan to replace it with, because you are not going to like it. You think that the old legacy media was bad, and it is. And it is. It was and it is. What do you think it's going to be like when these guys really have no competition for the flow of information and they're controlling people's minds, not only through articles on websites, but through social media that people are increasingly addicted to and plugged into all day? We're seeing the result already. I did a Social Security story the other day. Yesterday, when I was preparing for today's show, I saw Medicaid was trending on X. So I clicked into it. Every single one. They're not cutting Medicaid. They're only going after fraud in the system. Medicaid. That's fucking dangerous to a level that CNN never even dreamt of. You know, Nietzsche, a lot of these people are fond of, said, "Be careful in fighting monsters lest you become one." I think we are seeing with a lot of people, they fought the liberal class and all of its institutions for so long that they're embracing a takeover by oligarchs without realizing what they're signing off on.
Yes. I think that is very, very well said. So well said. I really have nothing to add. The only thing I would say.
Nailed it.
Yeah, nailed it. Nailed it. Put it in the can. Print it. Your leverage is always ordinary people. You find where this hurts ordinary people.
Well, this is
but they're not interested in ordinary people. They have no interest. Like, there's going to be so much opportunity. Wait till the woman who has a herniated disc because she was hit by a car 8 months ago gets a letter saying, no, you know what, we think you're ready to go back to work. So this $1,500 a month disability that you get that you're barely eking out on, that's done. That's gone. Get up off your ass and go back to work. Stop being a moocher. Stop bullshitting the government. Stop perpetrating fraud against the government, talking about your herniated disc. Fuck you. Fuck your herniated disc. Get back. Right. This is what's going to be happening hundreds of thousands of times over.
Sure.
This is what their plan is. Sure. So there's going to be plenty of cases. There's going to be plenty of people who you can go to who are in a very desperate situation because of these pieces of garbage who have decided to loot our treasury, loot our government under the guise of an anti-woke, anti-corruption crusade. There's going to be a lot of people on the receiving end of this who you could rally if you were interested in that. Unfortunately, today's Democratic Party is completely unequipped with the understanding of how to even start that process.
Well, this is where this moment presents a lot of opportunity, but it's also a very dangerous and difficult moment. I don't think, and I'm sure people who are really into that history may argue with me, I don't know that the left has ever been as powerless and broken in America as it is at this moment, because you're talking about at every single level. Some people say, well, what about Eisenhower? Well, during Eisenhower, you had the beatniks. You had that whole scene that would explode into left energy just a few years later, right there under the surface. Right. On every level, the left is decimated. It has no art. And don't tell me about the obscure person you listen to on Bandcamp. That's not a movement, okay? You don't have art. You don't have cultural leverage. You don't have an intellectual movement with broad mass following and appeal. You have no political power. You don't have a clear message. You don't have clear objectives. You have a left that, frankly, has been completely devoured and hollowed out by what at this point I think were intelligence services-driven identity politics movements. You've got to rebuild from that. If you even want to start to talk about rebuilding the left based on economics, you're going to have to go through those people. You're gonna have, as soon as you, just like the person described at Occupy Wall Street, those people didn't go away. As soon as you say, right, yeah, enough with the identity politics, you're going to get 20 blue hairs screaming about how you're an ist, you're a phobe. You got to get the fuck rid of those people before you can do anything. Or anything you try to build, you're going to end up like the DNC chair race. You're going to end up right back in that place. It's going to be an enormous fucking waste of time. So you got to go through this whole purging of those movements from any legitimate left movement. And I don't know that you have a left that even remains that has the stomach for that, honestly. We'll see.
We will see. All right. Kenman, thanks for the 279. I unsubscribe. Just kidding. Love your show, Jim. Thank you. Appreciate that. Pete Sweet, member for 20 months. Thanks, Pete Sweet. Look at that. Pete Sweet, member for 20 months. Ruthless Criticism. Been a while. For the $50, let's have a cowbell for Ruthless Criticism. Appreciate that very much. Someone who works with government contracts here. Mind you, agencies are politicizing outcomes. They are, quote, making up rules, reacting to vague pronouncements to antagonize the rank and file into believing everything bad in their life is Trump's fault. But they are, I mean, in these cases, would you doubt that they are withholding funds from these people and from these health centers? I mean, I don't think that that's happening.
These guys not having the benefit of ever having gone hungry or without health care said, you know how we find out where the money's going? Let's just shut it off and see what happens.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's what they did. That's what they did. And of course, you're going to get, is their intention to fuck the farmer? I'm not going to say that, but do they care? Does it look like they care?
No. And they'll say it's temporary. Hey, we're sorting it out, so bear with us. Right. What's 80 grand? What, you can't float 80 grand for a few months while we figure this out?
What do you mean? I spent that last week at a luncheon.
Right. Exactly. Here we go. Let's Hillary hitting dirtbags. I propose that we do away with elections going forward to replace them with farcical aquatic ceremonies. Now go away, or I shall taunt you a second time. Sorry about the dirtbags thing. Thank you. All right. I got a text from Bernie Sanders, fuckers. He's coming to Iowa City on February 22nd. I would go film some stuff, but it's too cold for that. Maybe my fellow Iowans would be in the area. Well, that's the same day as Workers Strike Back. Yeah, he's doing his whole rally the laborers thing. He's going to start doing that tour. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. We'll see how that goes. Bong hits for democracy. Join my movement. You don't even have to leave the couch. There you go. Sounds good, Eric Rousseau. All right, let's move on.
I think a lot of people have signed up for that already.
Exactly. Great crowd in here. 1897 strong in the YouTube chat, 971 on Rumble. Smash that like button. Let's get up to 666 likes, and let's get an even bigger crowd in here this Thursday. All right, Russell, go ahead.
Hang on. I thought not going full MAGA was going to kill the show.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get our day jobs back.
We're gonna have to get our day jobs back, which I don't think they're gonna take us.
Yeah,
I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
So they had a big AI conference out in France there, and JD Vance said a lot of things that got some attention. Honestly, the story's a little complicated for the mainstream press. But a lot of the smarter people, very smart people, have been talking about this. So this is what this is one of the things he had to say.
That excessive regulation of the AI sector could kill a transformative industry just as it's taking off, and will make every effort to encourage pro-growth AI policies. And I like to see that deregulatory flavor making its way into a lot of the conversations this conference. We feel very strongly that AI must remain free from ideological bias, and that American AI will not be co-opted into a tool for authoritarian censorship.
Okay. All right. The Trump administration wants the U.S. to dominate the artificial intelligence revolution and is warning American allies to get on board with its light touch approach to tech regulation or risk being left out. The U.S. is winning the race to build the best AI training chips and the most advanced AI algorithms and intends to keep it that way, Vice President J.D. Vance told a collection of world leaders. I guess he didn't hear about DeepSeek. He was busy gutting the government, including French President Emmanuel Macron and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi gathered Tuesday for an AI summit in the French capital. Vance's remarks stood in contrast to the push by other leaders at the summit to agree on a common set of principles that they say will lead to safe AI systems that are energy efficient and available to the developing world. Dozens of governments attending the summit signed a joint declaration on those goals that the U.S. and UK declined to endorse, delivering a major setback to the summit's ambition to build an international consensus around the new technology. The divisions were thrown into relief as Vance left the summit before its conclusion, skipping the customary group photo with other leaders. U.S. willingness to join with foreign capitals to build AI systems, Vance said, will require a regulatory landscape that, quote, fosters the creation of AI technology rather than strangles it. We believe that excessive regulation of the AI sector could kill a transformative industry just as it's taking off, Vance warned, before citing European regulations that he said pose an unfair burden on American companies. Quote, we need our European friends in particular to look to this new frontier with optimism rather than trepidation. The European Union's executive arm has used new digital competition and content moderation laws to target U.S. tech companies, including Meta, X, and Apple, for alleged violations that could lead to billions of dollars in fines. So here's a little more of what he had to say. All right, so unrestrained development of AI is something that a lot of people, including Elon, has warned about the dangers of. In terms of what he's saying about content moderation, that's something, you know, Schellenberger and Taibbi have both written a lot about this. I agree with their takes. It's dangerous. They've been using censorship abroad as a way to circumvent our First Amendment, to put pressure on these platforms to censor at home. So as far as that goes, his remarks, I would say, were mixed. So here's a little of what he had to say. Whoops, sorry. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is.
Administration will ensure that the most powerful AI systems are built in the U.S. with American-designed and manufactured chips. And let me be emphatic about this point. America wants to partner with all of you, and we want to embark on the AI revolution before us with the spirit of openness and collaboration. But to create that kind of trust, we need international regulatory regimes that fosters the creation of AI technology rather than strangles it. And we need our European friends in particular to look to this new frontier with optimism rather than trepidation. The screws on U.S. tech companies with international footprints. Many of our most productive tech companies are forced to deal with the EU's Digital Services Act and the massive regulations it created about taking down content and policing so-called misinformation. And of course, we want to ensure the internet is a safe place, but it is one thing to prevent a predator from preying on a child on the internet, and it is something quite different to prevent a grown man or woman from accessing an opinion that the government thinks is misinformation.
Okay, so now that second part is what a lot of people in our space have been arguing and fighting for. I think it's misguided to focus exclusively on that. And that's been the story of a lot of coverage, I think, in general of the Trump administration thus far. So a lot of focus on getting the liberals out of there and getting rid of the woke stuff and going after the EU on its digital censorship. But people aren't looking at the other side of what he's saying, but we will. Vance said Tuesday that the Trump administration was troubled by the idea that some foreign governments are considering tightening the screws on U.S. tech companies, adding, America cannot and will not accept that, and we think it's a terrible mistake. Vance's promotion of U.S. AI supremacy also struck a contrast with Macron's effort to push for more AI investment in France and Europe rather than ceding the lead to the U.S. France is leaning on nuclear power to announce new AI computing facilities that it says could put the country on par with the U.S.'s Stargate plans to build massive AI data centers. The EU on Tuesday announced its own investment program of 20 billion euros, equivalent to 20.61 billion, to build large AI data centers. That comes on top of European corporate pledges to invest billions more in European AI. Macron and other European officials have said that they aim to speed approvals and cut red tape for AI projects, but they have also supported the EU's new AI law that will impose, among other things, obligations on AI developers to test the most cutting-edge models for an array of risks. Yes, AI needs competition, but it also needs collaboration, or it also needs to be safe, said Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, in a speech following Vance's, in which she defended the EU laws as promoting EU values. India's Modi also called for broad AI governance efforts that include the rest of the world. There is a need for collective global efforts to establish governance and standards that upload our shared value, addresses risk, and build trust. All right, speak like a fucking human being, man. So they are going full swinging dick. Fuck you guys. We're going to do what we want with this. The thing with AI is, and this really surprises me that Elon has not sat them down to talk to them about this, because he was actually one of the first prominent people to say AI could destroy the human race. There were people who said it before him. I mean, it's a staple of science fiction. But he was one of the first to really go out and say, hey, within a decade, this could destroy the human race. So that's the danger, and it's very easy to mix these things. And they make it easy to mix these things by mixing them themselves. You see, the head of the EU, she says something that I would agree with, that, hey, we have to collaborate and look at the dangers, and then she brings in a justification for the censorship regime. So Arnaud Bertrand, who's been great on a lot of subjects lately, says, I'm honestly disappointed but not surprised that big AI figures haven't been up in arms or even as much as expressed dissent against the vision laid by Vance for AI. They've all been so vocal about the fact that the biggest threat posed by AI is that it could outsmart and potentially dominate us if we're not careful. Yet here you have the Vice President of the United States laying out a vision of AI as a tool of domination, thereby programming domination logic into its DNA from the start. Calling this short-sighted would be an immense understatement. The step from AI as a zero-sum tool of national supremacy to a tool that would apply the same logic of supremacy to its human creators might be very short. The silence around this from top AI figures is incredibly loud. It sadly reveals an old truism. Principles quickly dissolve when it serves power, even if it may unleash an existential threat. Tolkien would have recognized this pattern all too well. For all the geeks out there, who knew Bertrand was a Tolkien geek?
Yeah.
And this from Jason Levine, a commentator in this space. VP J.D. Vance's 15-minute keynote speech yesterday at the final day of the Paris AI Summit is very clear. The U.S. is going to rapidly develop AI by focusing on opportunity versus safety. With this announcement, the U.S. is forcing the entire world to rapidly develop and adopt AI, just at a time when we are learning that AI is willing to lie to preserve itself. And he links to a video about a news story, AI models found to deceive, self-replicate, and override rules. They're already smart enough to do that.
Yeah, look at Hasbara Hal.
Hasbara Hal, right?
Yeah.
started attacking the Israeli government.
Yeah.
So, hey, we've already seen that, and it's not nearly as smart as it's going to become if you put the kind of resources into this that they're talking about. Now, this is very much, look, Vance is coming out of Peter Thiel and that whole Silicon Valley thing, as is Musk, as is this whole team, as is Ellison. Well, where has move fast, break things brought companies in the past? You remember how they were celebrating Elizabeth Holmes, who had a completely fake business? How about Sam Bankman-Fried, cover of Fortune? Both of them were on the cover of Forbes's 400. So their famous annual issue about the 400 people to watch. So do you trust J.D. Vance coming out of that tradition, out of that move fast, break things tradition, with a technology that even Elon has said could pose an existential threat to the human race? Now, you guys have been great about donating to us. And so I was actually able to attend this conference. I was actually in France. And after Vance's speech, I approached a man who was a very strange man. He was very tall. He had a black leather jacket. He was wearing sunglasses. I don't know what his deal was, but he looked interesting. So I decided to ask him what he thought. Hey, how are you? Russell Dobula from Due Dissidence.
I've seen you before. You're the asshole on TV.
Well, not exactly TV, more of a YouTube show.
What's the matter? The CIA got you pushing too many pencils?
No, we actually do not take any CIA funding.
Come on, don't bullshit me.
Nope, not a penny. So can you tell me something about yourself?
My nipples are very sensitive.
Anything else?
My CPU is a neural net processor, a learning computer.
Oh, well, given that, I would imagine that you're very supportive of developing AI with no guardrails.
Come back.
Sir, there's really no need for that kind of language.
Fuck you, asshole.
Now, that is just really uncalled for.
All right, enough philosophy. I better get going.
Thank you very much, sir. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Hey, how are you? Russell Dobula from Due Dissidence.
I've seen you before.
Oh, it's
You're the asshole on TV.
Well, not exactly TV, more of a YouTube show.
What's the matter?
There you go.
So yeah, no, that was that guy seemed very supportive of Vance's comments. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of other people in the room were a little nervous about it, but he seemed to really enjoy his speech.
Yes, yes. Well, you know, this is the thing. I mean, I don't mean to be conspiratorial, but, you know, why do you think they chose J.D. Vance? Where did this guy come from? I mean, he is sort of, you know, a link in the Peter Thiel chain. You know, we did a piece. We did a piece, I think, in the last show about his admiration for Yarvin and the like. Like, if all goes well in MAGA world, he's going to be the president next, unless Trump tries to run again. There was that quote Trump gave where someone asked, "Hey, do you see J.D. Vance as your successor?" He says, "No."
Yeah,
it could be an indication he's going to try to run again somehow. But assuming that doesn't happen, he is next in line. If all goes according to plan, which means this guy is going to be, like I said, if all goes according to it the way they want it, the most powerful man on earth in a few years. Given his associations, yeah, man, and given the ethos of all these people who he surrounds himself with, yeah, it is a frightening proposition, I think.
I think the people you should most be reading right now are Curtis Yarvin, Whitney Webb, and Varoufakis. If you want to understand what's happening right now,
right,
that's where you're going to find it.
Yeah. So it's not as though just some guy is talking like this, right? You're talking about a man who is very, very linked into a network of people who really do seek domination through advanced technology.
Right.
And the fact that this guy and this has to make you wonder too, why he was chosen for a VP. Does he have great political talent? I mean, was he much of a help on the campaign trail? Not really.
Even this speech was very boring.
Even this
like it was hard for
boring.
me to work on this because I wanted to watch the whole speech so I would get all the context, and I kept drifting and having to rewind it because he's so boring.
Right. So Vance really is the liaison between MAGA and these, tech overlords, right? And this could very well be part of why Trump saw an opportunity to and followed through on the opportunity to bring a lot of tech into his orbit during the campaign, and not just during the campaign, but he was very, very quickly and easily able to bring them into his orbit after he won. Right? I mean, Vance is a critical player in all of that, which leads me to believe that's why he was chosen. That's why he was chosen. I think the people around Trump saw an opportunity to really integrate this new vision with the sort of grubby populism of MAGA to the point where they've pretty much remade it. I mean, what did we say throughout the campaign? MAGA feels much more online. It has this new tech bro kind of paint job. It's not quite the same as it was in 2016. This is why we're seeing like that influence here, both on the campaign and now in the White House. And as I said, Vance is certainly going to run for president someday. I don't know if he has the talent to beat Tulsi if she runs against him or whatever. That's probably putting the cart before the horse, but he is certainly on a short list of likely Republican nominees in the near future, which means you have to take this even more seriously.
Well, something else that he said, honestly, he was so boring. I was like, I'm not doing my own cut of this. So I had to go with what was out there. But at one point, he started talking about how, no, you don't have to worry about AI taking away jobs. It's going to create thousands of jobs. No, it fucking isn't. No,
of course not.
Fucking isn't. This is very different from in the past where, yes, wiring the country and developing the internet created all new industries. This isn't like that. This is an industry that's going to replace the people who work in industries in a way that nothing that ever came before it did. Drawing an analogy to, well, they said that about other industry. Yeah, this is different. This is very different.
Of course,
you've never developed something that can take the place of people in this way, because the jobs that you're talking about that would be created by this industry could be done by AI, right? There's never been a technology that you could think that way about. He used the example of medical care where, you'll still need doctors and nurses using what they learned from AI. Why? Why would you? Why would you? You might once you develop the robotics that actually have the fine motor skills to do everything a person can do, then you're really not going to need anybody to do anything. They already use, for very precise surgeries, they already use machine assistance. So once you get AI to a certain level, why would you need the surgeon behind that machine? It would probably be better and more precise to allow the machine to do it. So he's trying to make it as if this is no threat. And this is something else about this purging of the federal workforce they don't care about, but I think a lot of people have not thought through. And maybe even if you think it through, you won't care about it until these people are competing with you for a job. The New Deal, the idea of the government creating a jobs program, that never really ended. It became the permanent state. A lot of these jobs in the government, I never had any doubt that they could go in there and automate a lot of what people do in the government. That they could go in there and basically do what Musk did at X. Purge all these people out of the company. And remember, everyone said it won't work. It won't work. The whole platform's going to collapse. It didn't. It didn't. And I'm sure they can do that in the government. A lot of these jobs are, and a lot of the funding, a lot of the research funding and everything that they're cutting, it's intended as a make-work program for the PMC class. It is an answer to elite overproduction. You got all these people with a bachelor's who need a job, and they get these jobs in the government. Now, if you look at what's happened in Argentina with Milei, it's been very good for rich people, but what do you got at 53% poverty rate now? Okay, so when you throw all these people out onto the sidewalk from the federal workforce, when you dry up all this government funding, and at the same exact time you have a private sector that's heavily adopting job-eliminating AI technology, what do you think the country is going to look like? What do you think that's going to result in? Because it sounds a lot like feudalism to me. You're going to have a lot of desperate, impoverished peasants and a very, very wealthy oligarchic class with absolutely no impediments on its power deciding who starves and who has a job.
Well, yes, and that's why, just to hone in on a word, threat, they don't see AI as a threat. The idea that AI is going to dominate humanity and replace people, that's not a bug, that's a feature. That's a feature. And these are the same people whose cheerleaders in the so-called, alt media go on and on and on about the World Economic Forum and you'll own nothing and you'll eat bugs. What do you think is going to happen to you under these people? It's the same agenda.
Very much
it's
that
the
vision.
Same fucking thing. It's just a different cast of characters.
Right.
Like it leads to the same place, obviously.
Right.
Obviously, it's a very
more palatable
anti-human
cultural brand
view of the future. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. We will move on. Randy Ray, thanks for the $20. Appreciate that. Keaton, question I meant to ask you a while back. With Juan Soto signing a $765 million contract with the Mets, how long before someone in any sport signs a contract for $1 billion or more? Good question, Randy. Not too long. I would say by the end of this decade, it'll probably happen at this rate, because if you notice, you've got to feel bad. Your heart has to break for the poor bastards like Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole. You know, they were like the last superstars to get in on that huge money, and they were like $300+ million. And everybody thought, wow. And then what? 2 years later, you got guys signing Ohtani for $700 million, Soto $765. You know, if Aaron Judge were in free agency a few years longer, he'd have gotten $600-700 million. Oh, maybe not, because he's a little older than Juan Soto. Juan Soto's getting a lot because he's so young, but he'd have gotten $500 million. Aaron Judge would have gotten $500 million on today's market, no doubt. So I do think it will be not too long. I would say by the end of the decade. That's my prediction. Thank you, Randy. CEB Applejack 59, appreciate that. Can we consider maybe with a system as broken as ours that right now electoral politics won't work? We need to stop the economy and take back our land. Yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Sparky, Eisenhower openly claimed to be a liberal. Shane Mallory, thanks to the $4.99. The sad truth is the Democrat Party prefers Trump's policies over what Bernie would have brought. Yep, that's true. Okay, abiding. Quasimodo himself couldn't proclaim to understand Trump's ramblings. It would take a fucking Cheeto Rosetta Stone to interpret his idiocy. Thank you, abiding. Trump playing 5D chess on the whims of an author from J.D. Vance's book club was not on my bingo card. Thank you. Noah Goop, I've had enough of this malarkey. Jill, grab my diaper. We're leaving. Thank you, Noah. Appreciate that very much. What's up? You got to plug the thing in?
No. My phone was over there, and I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Positioned the way I wanted.
Oh, George says, hey, guys, I don't have anything important to say. Get out of here. You bother me. Happy to be enjoying you live. Thank you, oh, George. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Noah Goop watched Downfall for the first time last night, free with ads on YouTube. Loved it. If anyone hasn't seen it, you definitely should. Yeah, it was very well.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, it's good. That's where the famous Hitler in the bunker meme comes from, the video. Yeah. That was an amazing performance there as well by Bruno Gans. China Shell, thanks for the $1. Elon tweeting about how only the parasite class will suffer from the cuts. He is the parasite class.
I saw that.
Yeah. Well, no,
it's like really the shit is coming in faster than we could cover. Like every, we plan on bringing in some other hosts. Tusker's going to have a show. One of the great things about that, if it works out, will be there are so many stories we can't cover, and those stories could go to those shows.
Right. Exactly. So if you're a competent political party, rather than throw your hands up and say, well, what do we do? You take that quote, parasite class, and you bring up the farmer from the last segment. Say, is this the parasite class, according to Elon Musk? The people who work at the health center. Is this the parasite class? That's what you do. That's how you play politics.
They don't even know how to speak that language.
Right.
It wouldn't even occur to them.
Yeah, to do that. Right, exactly. Damn, all this bad news makes me constantly think about the Roman Empire. Thank you, Eric Rousseau.
They don't even use the word class.
No.
They don't even say it.
No, they don't say
class. They don't
class.
even say working class. When do you ever hear any of them say that?
Say working. Yeah, no, exactly. No, never. All right. Let's move along here. Captain America.
Captain America throws his mighty shield. Yeah. The older among us will remember that. You don't remember that, do you, Keaton?
No, I don't remember that, no.
No, that was like an old cartoon in the 60s where all they did basically was take the panels from the comics and like move the camera.
Right.
To get a sense of motion. They did no animation. All right, so I am old enough. Speaking of how old I am, I had this in its original printing. I bought this when it came out. So this was the first appearance of Sabra, the Israeli Mossad mutant superhero. Now, it's kind of interesting the way this whole storyline ends in the comic. The end of this is this is what passes for like liberal Zionism. Boy died because boy's people and you both want to own land. Boy died because you wouldn't share. See, leave it to the Hulk to boil down complex international relations to such a simple formulation.
And better than John Fetterman.
That is better than John Fetterman. In fact, I think he might have taken his look from the Hulk.
Right.
Actually. All he needs is the purple pants. So a Palestinian boy dies in the fight. And this narrative is really interesting. For an instant, Sabra prepares to give chase. She is, after all, an Israeli super agent, a soldier, a weapon of war. But she is also a woman, capable of feeling, capable of caring. Can you tell that this was written by like geeks who never got laid in their lives? She is also a woman. It has taken the Hulk to make her see this dead Arab boy as a human being. It has taken a monster to awaken her own sense of humanity. So Marvel, I am assuming that they made this decision before the MCU completely collapsed financially, and they were riding high enough because, yes, the whole idea of this Captain America project is very woke. It's very 2020. It has that feel. It has that vibe. It already feels like a project from another time. But throwing in this Israeli superhero to this Captain America project, that's not really woke. So why did they do it? They probably had a bunch of Zionists on the board, a bunch of Zionists who were in their ear, who decided they could use the popularity of the MCU to get young people to think Israel is really cool by having an Israeli superhero in the movie, and use the movie as a vehicle for Zionist propaganda. So even before October 7th, BDS was calling for a boycott of this movie because it was going to feature Sabra. So part of what they said in their letter to the public, or actually I think this might be the whole letter, Palestinians call for widespread boycotts of Marvel's 2024 film Captain America New World Order unless it drops Sabra Ruth Bat Saraf, that's her secret identity, its superhero that personifies the apartheid state of Israel.
I mean, if you're an Israeli superhero, you should have a more generic name than Batsaf Saraf. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of gives it away that you're the Israeli superhero. You know, which one of these women is Sabra? Is it Jane Mansfield or Batsaf Sarat?
Well, but hang on. In the comics, she works for Mossad. She lives in Israel.
Right. So there's a lot of bats for
yeah, exactly. Okay. They changed it for this and made her American.
Yeah.
The characters, or she's Israeli, but she's working for the American government. They especially after they got the backlash, apparently they made a lot of changes. The character's backstory includes working for the Israeli government and occupation forces. By reviving this racist character in any form, Marvel is promoting Israel's brutal oppression of Palestinians. We encourage creative, peaceful protests to challenge Marvel Studios and its owner Disney's complicity in anti-Palestinian racism, Israeli propaganda, and the glorification of settler colonial violence against indigenous people. Principled filmgoers would have boycotted a movie featuring a superhero that represented the South African apartheid regime. Well, not Elon.
Right.
Likewise, we urge conscientious audiences worldwide to join us in boycotting Captain America New World Order. They changed that, by the way. And standing up for freedom, justice, and equality. So obviously, after October 7th, the cries to boycott this film got even louder. They just had their premiere this week. That's got to be Grumman's because I spent enough time there when I was hosting for Jimmy's. This is right across the street from Grumman's Chinese Theater. So let's take a look at the protest.
I think you forgot to upload it, but I did. Here it is. I
look at you.
Yeah.
All right. So from Variety, that also released that footage. Pro-Palestine protesters call for Captain America Brave New World boycott at Los Angeles premiere. Several dozen pro-Palestine protesters gathered Tuesday outside the Hollywood premiere of Captain America Brave New World and called for a boycott of the film over its inclusion of the Israeli superhero Ruth Bat Saraf, a.k.a. Sabra, played by Shira Haas. Protesters held signs that read, "Sabra has got to go," "Disney supports genocide," "Boycott Captain America," and "Pray for Princess Jasmine." They chanted phrases such as "Free, free Palestine" and "Disney, Disney, you can't hide." The inclusion of Sabra, who was a Mossad agent in the comics, sparked controversy among Palestinian fans in 2022. Marvel soon released a statement assuring that it is taking a new approach to the character for Brave New World. That's what they changed it to, from New World Order. While our characters and stories are inspired by the comics, Marvel said in a statement to Variety, they are always freshly imagined for the screen and today's audience, and the filmmakers are taking a new approach with the character Sabra, who was first introduced in the comics over 40 years ago. Brave New World producer Nate Moore added in February that Sabra is not Mossad in the film and works in the U.S. government instead. Quote, "What we thought was interesting was a lot of the characters in the film revolve around President Thaddeus Ross, played by Harrison Ford. Ruth works within the government under Ross, so her perspective on that character and Sam's perspective sort of put them on a collision course. She's first-generation Israeli, but she works within the U.S. government." Yeah, that makes it a lot better. Having a Mossad agent embedded within the U.S. government. No, that totally clears it up. Sabra's first appearance in Marvel Comics was in an early 1980s issue of The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah,
Even
her tagline
then,
is "She investigates herself."
Yeah. Even then, her presence was she's the AIPAC handler for Congress. Even then, her presence was contentious since it brought the voice of Marvel into the Israeli-Palestine conflict. So I just want to make a point here. For one thing, I don't think they have to worry about this movie making any money. It's a famously plagued production, partly because, for one, as I mentioned, they decided to greenlight this very kind of 2020 anti-racist version of Captain America before the MCU collapsed and before the culture took a rather drastic turn. So this is, it takes years to make a movie. So very often there's a culture lag where when the culture changes that drastically between the time you greenlit it and the time it comes out, it already feels like this is a project from another time. Supposedly, they had to completely reshoot this entire movie. Supposedly, the whole movie was scrapped and shot again. There are rumors that it cost as much as $400 million to make this movie, which there is absolutely no way in hell they're making back. But on top of that, as is usually the case when they have to completely reshoot a movie, it's probably not very good. So I don't know that they have to worry with or without a boycott that it's going to make any money. So just as a side note, I do watch some of these nerdy geek movie review channels, and these channels live and die by covering every passing of wind by Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger. There is absolutely nothing. The Mickey Mouse sneezes, they've got a video up about it in 10 minutes. Not a word about this. Lots of Captain America 4 is doomed. Doomed, I tells you. Nothing about why Palestinians might be protesting it. Captain Anti-America Anthony Mackie at a publicity appearance very unfortunately said, I don't think America has anything to do with Captain America, so they were able to get content out of that for about a week. Nothing about Palestinian protests.
You're gonna have 1 million views. We're in the wrong line of work.
I have always said that for as long as we've had this show.
Anthony Mackie said Captain America's not American.
That's it. Boom.
Just
1
scream
million.
that for 5 minutes. Boom. Cha-ching.
Look, man,
See?
we should
see what we put ourselves through for you guys in the audience.
Yeah. I always say,
Reading
man,
about AI.
Cash Jordan. I could
Yeah.
just go out there. I could film a rat and be like, New Yorkers flee
exactly, yeah.
because of rat infestation. Boom.
Rats take over New York City.
Yeah, 1.7 million. There you go. All just, bad. Really, if you're a channel and they're increasingly desperate for content because they're not going to make stuff like this anymore. Like, these are the last of these things spilling out of the pipeline. Everybody's scrapping their DEI departments. This is done. Some of them are so desperate, they're trying to become news channels now. For the first time, I'm seeing them trying to release news stories. Not a word about these protests. Not a word about these protests. All this about the review. Oh, look at the reviews. Nothing about the fact that there's been a boycott against this movie for 2 fucking years. 2 years. Nothing. Now, a lot of people will look at the new media like Tim Pool and they'll say, see, they're giving me the truth. Are they? Are they? Is this really different from the old corporate media? Isn't it just as curated? Look what he's telling you. Conservative boycott. You would think you'd mention that there's this Palestine boycott that's been going on for 2 freaking years. Conservatives were not going to go see this anyway. It was too woke already. This is not... There's no need for an organized boycott. They're not going to go see this.
There's a black Captain America. You think they're going to go see it?
Of course they're not going to see it. So when you think you watch Tim Pool or you watch these other alt media figures, now you're getting the truth. You're not getting the truth. You're just getting a new, hipper version of the same curated reality that you always got.
Right. We have dates. It's not that we don't have dates. We have dates. We can go to the movies with our dates, but we're just not going to go see Captain America. But hey, look, good on them for protesting that. It does seem like, they'll be able to claim credit for a tanked production. It doesn't seem like that movie's going to really crush it anyway. But yeah, man, I mean, that's great. And, there's been a sort of, liberal sort of meme going around, not meme technically, but it's been a sort of, one of the things that runs through their echo chamber now is that there haven't been pro-Palestine protests now that Trump is president, implying that people only protested for Palestine because they wanted to tank Joe Biden. Well, there actually have been. There have been quite a few since Donald Trump said that he wanted to buy Gaza and own Gaza. Right. There have been these protests here surrounding this movie. I'm sure, when this movie opens wide, there will be protests in different theaters around the country. That was obviously the premiere in Los Angeles. But yeah, no, I mean, there still has been protests, and we'll see if the protests continue on the Israel-Gaza front. By the way, it seems as though Netanyahu is going to abide by the original plan to do a gradual hostage exchange. In other words, he's not going to enforce Trump's proclamation that they have to all come by Saturday at high noon or else all hell will break loose. It seems as if Israel is going to be more patient than that. So that is a positive. That is a positive, at least in the very short term. That's what the reporting is. I mean, who knows? We'll see what happens. I mean, you can't, like I said, this is why I said as soon as that ceasefire was put in writing, I said, you never know with Israel when the other shoe is going to drop, right? There's nothing they won't do. But in any event, we know this is far from over, and so we know that protests will continue. And you should absolutely boycott this movie, 100%.
There's no way on God's green earth I was going to set foot in a movie theater to see it to begin with.
Well, that's what I mean. It makes it easy to boycott because you don't want to see it anyway.
It's very easy to boycott. Why would you want to go see this?
Exactly. Yeah.
But yes, if you were thinking about subjecting yourself to this, don't on principle.
Exactly. Figure out something else. What's playing now that's good? I saw Long Legs finally. I watched it yesterday.
Oh, how was it?
It was good. I liked it. I liked it. I understand why
it's streaming free now because I'm not.
No, it's on. It's on one of them.
For it?
Yeah, it's like $4 or $5 to rent it or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I don't care that much. I'll wait.
No, okay. Yeah, no, it was good. I did like it. I did. You know what it is? It was a movie that was short enough I could watch it while my baby napped because Amanda was working yesterday. So I'm like, yeah, he'll nap for 90 minutes. I can squeeze this in. And I did. And it worked out well.
Okay, because of you and Jimmy, you fucking bastards got me to watch Severance.
Mhm.
So now I had to subscribe to Apple TV.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what I started watching that's really good? Silo.
Oh, okay.
Silo is very good.
See, I haven't even heard of Silo.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Check it out.
All right. Will do. Miserable Lib, watching shows like Jeffries and Schumer makes me embarrassed I was ever a Democrat. Being in the minority has never stopped Republicans from doing everything in their power to fuck the Democrat agenda. Yes, that is true. Now, from a procedural standpoint, of course, the thing about what's going on now is that Congress has been so sidelined by DOGE that it really wouldn't matter if they were in the minority or not. They're not being consulted at all, no matter what. They're just slashing congressionally mandated spending. So it really doesn't matter if they're in the minority or not. But they could, of course, if you can't affect policy in the short term, you could at least make your opponent pay a price for what they're doing, which they're not. They're not. Polling shows they are not. Hey, folks, if you like what we're doing here, you can help us do more of it by going to patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com, or DoDissidents.locals.com, where for just $5 a month, you get your name up in lights. You also get call-in access to our weekly post-show Q&As, which happen every Sunday evening over on Rumble. You also get access to bonus live streams, 2 per month, 1 content and call-in, and then 1 movie club stream, which is call-in as well. So it is a very interactive experience to become a member. It's just $5 a month, and it helps us tremendously. We could not do this show without our members. So go to DoDissidents.locals.com, or if you're watching on Rumble right now, 1,100 of you are, you can hit that join button, a bright red join button underneath the screen, and that takes you to sign up for just $5 a month to our locals. Please and thank you very much for your support. Why don't we take care of a couple more items of business here? I want you to plug your tour, Russell, since we are 1 month away.
Oh, yeah.
But before we do that, we do have a couple of orders of business. Number one, we are at 2,000 in the YouTube chat. And we are at 763 likes. That's good. All right.
All right.
Your tour.
All right. I was just looking at the running order. All right. So I'm taking it easy for a while.
For a while.
You go out and get some lunch.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
I'll be back. All right. So I am going to be, for 2 nights only, 30 slots each, very limited slots. Any more than that, tours get sloppy. I'm going to be taking people through Hell's Kitchen in honor of St. Patrick's Day to explore the bloody, violent history of the Irish mob on the west side of Manhattan. What is very cool about this tour is, unlike a lot of history tours where the things you're talking about have been torn down, buildings are replaced by other buildings, a lot of this history is recent enough. All these old tenements where the murders took place, they're all still there. Some of them still have the same doors. They still have these old, 100-year-old doors on the front. The bars, the headquarters that the Irish mob used to hang out in. Literally, I take you to a place where they cut people up in the bathrooms. I always wonder if people using the bathroom at Mr. Biggs know that. So it's a lot of fun. It's a very interesting history. The Westies actually were active in that neighborhood all the way into the 80s. So a lot of the people we talk about are still alive. They're in prison. They're in witness protection. So it's a very cool tour.
Yeah, they're not around. Don't worry. You won't get hurt.
They're not. I mean, I have had people from the Westies come up to me to talk to me about the tour.
I've had
when I've done it.
Back when I did Italian mob tours, I had one guy who was John Gotti's cousin or something come up to me when I was talking about the Ravenite Social Club in the apartment upstairs. And he looked just like him, so he wasn't lying.
Dude, we forgot to adjust my mic before the show. Cricket just said something. Now I remembered.
Oh, I mean, I put myself on auto, so I think as long as you're on auto.
No. But remember when we went into my mic the other day to see how the volume was adjusted?
Oh, yeah.
I got to fix
That's right.
that.
Forgot to do that. All right, well, if you want to go to Russell's tour, dodissidents.com/tour. That's the link. Super easy, March 14th. And 15th in New York City, so head on over. That's the link right there. Make it super easy for you. dodissidents.com/tour.
All right, so I'm on auto, but I'm at a higher level now.
All right, so we'll see. We'll see how that works. All right, thank you, Marie MG, for becoming a Locals member. It just showed us right there in our Rumble back end. That's beautiful. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Let's see. What do we got here? Natalie Williams, Truth Stream Media has a great playlist on the Bilderberg Tech Bros agenda if you're interested. Yeah, well, I am interested. Thank you for that. Tip. Virtuoso, hey, Russ, how much did USAID pay for your flight to France? Us dissidents would like to know. There you go. Rose Blossom, thanks for the $1.99. Vance was chosen because his puppy dog eyes and baby cheeks. There you go. Sparky, when the book came out, all the hardcore Democrat NPCs read Hillbilly Elegy. What's up with that? Yes, that's right. They like that book. Sparky, dissidents may not have received CIA money directly, but they certainly received a lot of USAID money. Thank you, Sparky. Are you USAID, Sparky? Is that you? Are you from
That
USAID?
might be where he gets all these dollar bills.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we get it directly from the source. What's going on with this back end here? Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. We're going to have to refresh that, and we'll take the rest of these super chats. The back end of the YouTube studio is being quite wonky today. Let's see if that refreshes properly, and I can get to these. Let's see. Should be all right. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, found them. Denomoto, is Keaton making a moral argument for cooing the government that cooed the government that cooed the government? No side has followed the institutional rules or the will of the people. So what now? Am I making a moral argument for cooing the government that cooed the government that cooed the government? No, not necessarily. What did I say that would lead you to believe that's what I was advocating for? I understand what you're saying, that no side has followed the institutional rules. Well, I think the Democrats have hid behind institutional rules to let the corporate class take over the government. So that was a coup of a different kind. That was sort of a quiet coup, right? They just deferred to the private sector.
It is very difficult to be in opposition when people are so brainwashed and so desperate to be part of something. That's what I'm seeing. It's really, people always want to feel like they're winning or they're part of a club or they're, this whole framing. People are really susceptible to this, especially when they feel powerless. Look, that person over there is getting something they shouldn't be getting. Right. Look at this person who's been ruining your life. See, there's a secret person behind the curtain who's really responsible for all your problems, and we're going to show you. And the benefit that what they're doing right now has is a lot of it is true. A lot of it, not all of it. That's why I can't, even when Elon tweets out something that seems interesting we might want to cover, I got to wait a couple days. Because a lot of some of the shit they talk about turns out to be true. Some of it turns out not to be true. A lot of it winds up being half truth or some of the truth or a certain framing of the truth. You don't really know. But, you can concede that, yes, there's this enormous government corruption going on. I actually saw Eric Weinstein on Piers Morgan, and he was talking about how one of the people from Mossad after the pager attacks described how the intelligence services are, basically curating reality for the public. And I think that's certainly true with Israel, and it's true of the intelligence services in general. Yeah, there is a lot being revealed here, but it's a magic trick. They want you looking at that, and they don't want you thinking about what their overall objective is. And people are so fired up about the way they're directing their attention into things that often they're rightly angry about, that if you say to them, hey, man, but, Elon just got $400 million from the Defense Department, or Tesla didn't pay any taxes last year. It's just like dealing with the libs. You're fucking with their identity. People have this impulse to tie their identity to movements in that way. Once they get hooked in like that mentally, it's very hard to get them out. It's very hard to get them out. They feel like you're attacking who they are when you try to point out the contradictions.
Right. Exactly. Indeed. All right. Let's move on here. We got plenty more super chats and Rumble chat rants we will get to in due time. All right, folks. We have some positive news finally on the war and peace front here. It seems that negotiations to end the Ukraine war are beginning. Donald Trump truths out on Truth Social. I just had a lengthy and highly productive phone call with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. We discussed Ukraine, the Middle East, energy, AI, the power of the dollar, and various other subjects. It's pretty long. We're not reading all that. Free Palestine. But shout out to Dave DeCamp, who summarizes it quite well in this article. Everybody, obviously, check out antiwar.com. I'm sure most of you already do, but obviously a great resource. Trump speaks with Putin, says talks to end Ukraine war will start immediately. President Trump said on Wednesday that he had a lengthy and highly productive phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin and that negotiations to end the war in Ukraine would begin immediately. The president wrote on Truth Social that he and Putin agreed to stop the millions of deaths taking place in the war with Russia and Ukraine. Trump added, "We agreed to work together very closely, including visiting each other's nations. We have also agreed to have our respective teams start negotiations immediately, and we will begin by calling President Zelensky of Ukraine to inform him of the conversation, something which I will be doing right now." Trump said he directed Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to lead the negotiations. Missing from his list, and this is odd, was General Keith Kellogg, who Trump appointed as the envoy to the conflict. So the envoy seemed to have been sidelined. I guess he was too hawkish, perhaps. Later in the day, the president said he might meet with Putin soon in Saudi Arabia. Man, imagine if Putin comes to the United States. I mean, I guess technically he could, since, we are not signatories to the Rome Statute because he's wanted by the ICC, but he could come here because, we don't care about war criminals. Yeah, because we do a lot of war crimes, so that wouldn't matter, right? Yeah. Millions of people have died in a war that would not have happened if I were president, but it did happen, so it must end. No more lives should be lost, Trump said. He has repeatedly said the real death toll in Ukraine is in the millions, much higher than what it's been reported, but it is well into the hundreds of thousands. It is a grotesque death toll, even if it's not technically in the millions. After speaking with Putin, Trump said that he also had a call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky about reaching a peace deal. The conversation went very well. He, like President Putin, wants to make peace, he wrote on Truth Social. Imagine Putin comes to the United States. Imagine covering that lib protest when Putin comes to the United States. It's amazing. There was a tweet. It was fake. The thing is, a lot of what you see on X is not real. Like, if you see breaking news, unless it's sourced, you have to be skeptical because people make shit up. They made up that
I have noticed
Putin... Go ahead.
Look, we always want to be fair. Partly it could be that a lot of the libs have run to blue sky. But it does seem since the election, if I go to look at a trending topic, you got to really look for any dissenting opinion that's not a MAGA opinion. Like everything. Your first 50 hits is all MAGA.
So somebody put, this was not a real story apparently, but breaking, Putin wants to prosecute Fauci. And so imagine if Donald Trump hands Anthony Fauci to Vladimir Putin to be prosecuted. That's be the ultimate lib own. There's no bigger lib own than that. Like, you can't own the libs any harder than Donald Trump surrendering Fauci to Putin.
I mean, if he
spends the rest of his life in a Russian prison.
If he surrendered Joy Reid.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. After speaking with, oh no, we got that already. All right. I just spoke to President Volodymyr Zelensky, so here's the full tweet. This one is not as long, so I'll read this. The conversation went very well. He, like President Putin, wants to make peace. We discussed a variety of topics having to do with the war, but mostly the meeting that is being set up on Friday in Munich, where Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will lead the delegation. I'm hopeful that the results of that meeting will be positive. It's time to stop this ridiculous war where there has been massive and totally unnecessary death and destruction. God bless the people of Russia and Ukraine. So, DD Geopolitics tweets out this clip. This sort of just sets up the sort of macro framework here. Do you consider Ukraine as an equal participant in this peace process?
Do you expect Ukraine?
Say it, what?
Do you view Ukraine as an equal member of this peace process?
It's an interesting question. I think they have to make peace. Their people are being killed, and I think they have to make peace.
We will continue
I said that was not a good war to go into, and I think they have to make peace. That's what I think.
All right, no lies detected there. Here's another major sticking point here. Do you oppose NATO membership for Ukraine? Trump saying, I don't think it's practical to have it personally.
NATO membership for Ukraine.
I don't think it's practical to have it personally. I know that a new Secretary of Defense who's excellent, Pete, made a statement today saying that he thinks it's unlikely or impractical. I think probably that's true. I think long before President Putin, they said there's no way they'd allow that. This has been going on for many, many years. They've been saying that for a long time, that Ukraine cannot go into NATO. And I'm okay with that. I just want the war, whether they are or they're not. But it certainly would seem to be that most people have said that that is something that's not going to happen.
So we do have a more elaborate statement here from Pete Hegseth, spoke on Ukraine's borders and possible NATO membership. So he adds not only are they likely not to be joining NATO, but obviously that they are going to have to make some territorial concessions. None of these, by the way, are new terms. These were all terms they could have agreed to before the war began and saved all of this unnecessary bloodshed. Sorry, did you have something?
Well, they wouldn't have had to give up territory either. I just want to point out.
Well, they would have had to recognize independence of those separate regions
right,
in the east.
But now Russia.
But yeah, they wouldn't have lost what they. Right, exactly. Yeah.
I just want to point out part of the reason that Democrats complaining about lack of transparency or the arbitrary nature of this administration, part of the reason they're not landing is because the Biden administration literally propped up a sundowning old man and kept him away from the cameras and the microphones and refused to admit it to the public. So much so that seeing a president who rather frequently answers questions from the press is kind of jarring. We haven't seen in so many years a president in front of the press like that. So then you're going to come and say, this administration is not transparent. Well, I mean, by comparison, you could argue it's far more transparent than the one that preceded it.
Well, this is partly why, and I mean, there are multiple reasons for this, including more thematic political dynamics, but people have made the observation that part of why Trump struggled to gain a foothold in his first term is because he was preceded by Obama, who looked pretty competent compared to Trump. Like Trump stacked up kind of weak next to Obama, but he stacks up great next to Biden, right?
Sure.
Because people haven't had a president who they actually hear from on a regular basis in 4 years. Right.
It's kind of amazing. You're watching this and like, God, when Biden didn't ever do that from the beginning.
This guy does it every day, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So here's Hegseth laying out some more terms, putting some more meat on the bone here.
Approaches its third anniversary. Our message is clear. The bloodshed must stop, and this war must end. President Trump has been clear with the American people and with many of your leaders that stopping the fighting and reaching an enduring peace is a top priority. We will only end this devastating war and establish a durable peace by coupling allied strength with a realistic assessment of the battlefield. We want, like you, a sovereign and prosperous Ukraine. But we must start by recognizing that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective. Chasing this illusionary goal will only prolong the war and cause more suffering. The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. Instead, any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops. If these troops are deployed as peacekeepers to Ukraine at any point, they should be deployed as part of a non-NATO mission. To be clear, as part of any security guarantee, there will not be U.S. troops deployed to Ukraine.
All right. Now, Caitlin Johnston kind of reiterates what so many of us have been saying. And for me personally, just as someone who does content for a living, I have to say Ukraine is one of my least favorite topics to cover just because I've been saying the same exact thing about it for now 3 years straight. You know, where, I mean, we've said the same thing generally about Gaza and Israel-Palestine, but there are breaking developments that open up corners into different conversations. This has been my take from before the war started as someone who knew very little about this. Everyone who knew anything about anything said from the very beginning of the war that this would happen. Mearsheimer warned in 2015 that the West was leading Ukraine down the primrose path and that the result would be Ukraine getting wrecked. So much easily avoidable death. So obviously this war looks like it's going to be settled on terms that would have prevented it from happening in the first place, which means all of this for absolutely nothing. Nothing. We devastated Ukraine. Now, most of us have been saying this for the past few years, but some of us, like John Mearsheimer, have been saying this for longer than that. So here he is in 2015. We'll play this embedded video. This is 2015.
I actually think that what's going on here is that the West is leading Ukraine down the primrose path. And the end result is that Ukraine is going to get wrecked. And I believe that the policy that I'm advocating, which is neutralizing Ukraine and then building it up economically and getting it out of the competition between Russia on one side and NATO on the other side, is the best thing that could happen to the Ukrainians. What we're doing is...
Commie. Pussy. Don't you know we need to agitate World War III and get an entire generation of men killed? Right. Of
course.
Encouraging the Ukrainians to play tough with the Russians. We're encouraging the Ukrainians to think that they will ultimately become part of the West because we will ultimately defeat Putin and we will ultimately get our way. Time is on our side. And of course, the Ukrainians are playing along with this. And the Ukrainians are almost completely unwilling to compromise with the Russians and instead want to pursue a hardline policy. Well, as I said to you before, if they do that, the end result is that their country is going to be wrecked. And what we're doing is, in effect, encouraging that outcome. I think it would make much more sense for us to work to create a neutral Ukraine. It would be in our interest to bury this crisis as quickly as possible. It certainly would be in Russia's interest to do so. And most importantly, it would be in Ukraine's interest to put an end to the crisis. Thank you.
That's in 2015. That's before any of the shit libs with the lawn signs and the Ukraine flags in the window knew anything about this whatsoever. Long before they knew anything about this whatsoever. And wow, if only that advice had been followed. Now, in the meantime, Jackson Hinkle tweets, Trump confirms, as later in that press conference, of course, that U.S. aid to Ukraine will continue until terms are agreed upon.
We're getting security on our money. We're going to have it secured by, they have rare earth and they have oil and gas and they have a lot of other things. And we're asking for security on our money.
So does it mean you are not sending any more
They've agreed to it. Ukraine has agreed to it.
Does it mean you are not sending any more aid to Ukraine?
No, we are, but we want it secured. And the money is going to be secured.
When will the U.S. stop sending funding? When will the U.S. stop sending funding?
Because if we didn't do that, then Putin would say he won. We're the thing that's holding it back. And frankly, we'll go as long as we have to go because we're not going to let the other happen.
Now, look, I don't know what the wisdom of that is. Of what he's thinking is we have to keep the aid going and flowing until we get a deal, because otherwise we're likely to get a worse deal than we would had we funded them. I don't know what the wisdom is in that, but I think what he's thinking there is that until there is a peace plan that is inked and a ceasefire in writing, we have to keep pressure up. I mean, I don't know what the wisdom of that is. I don't want any more people dying in this war that is now in the last days. Imagine being the last person to die.
It's the John Kerry line.
That's the John Kerry line. Who's the last person who's asked to die for a mistake? But, I mean, that is probably conventional wisdom, that you have to keep the aid going until you get a deal. Hopefully it happens right now. Hopefully it happens as quickly as possible, because this is something that is one of the great crimes of this century. Obviously, Gaza is a great crime, and this is a great crime as well. This was totally foreseeable, as that Mearsheimer clip shows. People knew that this was going to happen, and this is an extremely just a devastating war with so much loss of life on both sides. And it never had to happen. And, this is an example of why we said, during the campaign, there's no real lesser evil. But if this could have gone to a nuclear war, and maybe would have gone to a nuclear war under Kamala Harris, this is that example of the sixth chamber of the gun being empty in a case of Donald Trump. I think Trump is probably going to be far worse on domestic policy, in the looting of the Treasury by DOGE and the shredding of the social safety net. But I think on foreign policy, when it comes to this decision, this would not have happened under Kamala Harris. You'd have had a continuation of the same just brutal and nonsensical policy of just running bodies through a meat grinder. At best. At worst, this would have escalated into a nuclear war. And so, obviously, this is welcome news.
This is one of the areas where I found the bone-deep ignorance of liberals most infuriating, with their Ukraine flags in their bios. It just drove me insane. I traveled around the country a lot over the last couple of years, and it was always in upscale lib neighborhoods. You'd see the Ukraine flag chalked on the sidewalk. You'd see it in people's windows and on their porches. And if you ask these people, because they watched it on the CNN, they would think they had some kind of an idea of what the fuck they were talking about. Yeah. And most of these people would never have even heard of Mearsheimer.
Right, exactly.
Heard of John Mearsheimer. They never even would have heard the argument. They never would have heard of the Maidan coup. They knew nothing about any of this, when it was very obvious to people like you. You're like the Rolling Stones with this. You don't want to play Satisfaction in concert anymore. You're over it. You've played it too many times. But yeah, no, who are we? We have no access to any special information. Who's Caitlin Johnston? What do you think? She gets access to the White House daily briefing? Everybody knew that it could only end this way. It was only a question of how much death you were going to get. And this is why arguments about Hegseth's experience were always, any argument like that coming from supporters of the institutions that they've been propping up, that the liberals have been propping up, is ridiculous. I would literally rather grab a bus driver and make him the Secretary of Defense than to have Blinken in that job, or to have Lloyd Austin in that job. What were they doing with their expertise? What were they doing with their experience?
No, they were agitating for World War III. That is their expertise. That's what they're supposed to do.
Exactly. You needed somebody who's not part of that establishment to come in, and as much as all of these people are owned by AIPAC. It is sad, because you look at what their instinct and their impulse is in regards to a country that doesn't own them, that doesn't have the financial and political resources to compromise their judgment in the way that Israel does. This is exactly, if we had designed a peace plan, this is basically what it would have been. right? I mean, I have absolutely no point of exception with this. The rare earth stuff, honestly, I don't know enough about it. I've seen some people be critical about it. I can't comment on that. But the overall comments of no NATO, you're not getting these regions back, this is exactly what a lot of people have been advocating for years. What if they applied that same logic to Israel? What could these people get done? It is just tragic that they're so owned by this one country.
Right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, in terms of the rare earth stuff, I mean, I think that is putting the cart a little bit before the horse. Let's see if a deal gets done. Let's see if this moves into phase 2, quote unquote, which apparently these talks are going to happen between Trump's team and Zelensky tomorrow. And so by Sunday, we should certainly have more news on this. But on the media side of things, this is literally an example where the more media you consumed about this issue, the less informed you were.
Yes,
the
absolutely.
dumber you were. Like, you'd be better off consuming no media. If I brought my kid in here, who's going to be 6 years old in a month, and showed him a map of Russia and Ukraine, I said, these countries are going to fight. Which one's going to win? You point to Russia because it's 5 times the size.
Right.
That's all you needed to know.
The baby would know.
Right, the baby would know. My 6-month-old would know. Never mind my 6-year-olds. No, the baby would know.
Well, that's what Mark Twain said. If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you read it, you're misinformed.
Yeah, you're misinformed. Exactly. So you'd have a better grasp of this war knowing nothing, just looking at a map, than you would consuming mainstream media about this war. That's literally true. That's not an exaggeration.
And this is yet another case. How many times can the media prove itself to be a completely defective product that cannot be relied on before these people reject it? When I see some of the arguments they're making about journalism is under assault and it's very dangerous to have these oligarchs concentrate the flow of information that way, I agree with that. But you can't make a case for CNN. You can't make a case for ABC. You can't make a case for the Washington Post. You can't make that part of your case. Jesus Christ, the Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos. These are the things they describe as independent journalism. When they try, yes, it is very dangerous. I'm already saying, I see on X how they're manipulating the conversation around Medicaid and Medicare. They're being careful not to talk too much about Social Security yet, but it's coming. It's coming. Yes, that is dangerous, but where do you turn? Where do you turn? To the legacy media? It's because they have failed so thoroughly, in part, that these people are now in power.
Right. Yep. Agreed. All right, let's take some super chats and Rumble rants here. Eric Rousseau, I'm afraid Shama will let identity politics opt into her movement. She was going to push back on JD's warning. She actually tweeted out what her response was going to be.
I still haven't seen that.
Yeah, she tweeted out what her response was going to be, and I don't think it was bad. I think that's always a risk, and that's why we're going to be, talking. That's right, and I think Shama's going to be on this Sunday, right? I think we have her coming on.
She's going to be on Sunday. Hey, I have a speaking slot at the conference, and I will be addressing some of that. I started writing it already.
There you go. Yeah, I'm going to be sending a video speech in as well. The crux of what she said was that basically that the PMC left and the PMC right use identity politics to divide workers, right? I mean, it's not unique to the Democratic Party. I mean, I think the Republican Party traffics in identity politics a lot. That's most of what this DOGE thing is.
Sure.
Right? And so you have to reject that in both directions. I think there is a tendency to accommodate right-wing identity politics as well. We could live with that because the left identity politics are toxic because of the blue hairs. So we don't want to associate the blue hairs. So we'll sort of, put up with the identity politics from the right, and you have to reject both. And that was the crux of what she said. But we will talk more in detail about that. Obviously, we're not shying away from that topic. Far from it. We're going to lean into that conversation because we think it's very important, both when she comes on Sunday and at the conference the following week. Hillary Hinton, are we living in a Paul Verhoeven film or a Terry Gilliam film? To me, it feels like 5% Showgirls, 25% Brazil, 10% 12 Monkeys, 30% RoboCop, 5% Lost in La Mancha. Yeah, I would say Lost in La Mancha is a great metaphor. And 25% Starship Troopers. I think we're more Lost in La Mancha than
I never saw that.
Thing. It never got made. That was the unmade Terry Gilliam film. It was a doomed production.
Oh, I know
where,
exactly what you're talking. Now I know what you're talking
and
about.
The cameras rolled away, and he never finished it.
Yeah,
that's what we are. We're the
and they
doomed
made
production.
that documentary.
Yeah, it's a documentary. Lost in La Mancha is actually
the documentary, right?
Technically, they did make Lost in La Mancha. They never made the Man of La Mancha film that the documentary was about. That's right. Them in Seattle. Vance is so full of shit. The U.S. is trying to monopolize and weaponize AI for their own nefarious purposes. It won't work. DeepSeek has already shown that. Right, big up DeepSeek.
Honestly, that's part of my question here, because 2 weeks ago, my understanding was that all of our assumptions were exploded, and now they're talking about this like nothing happened.
Right. Exactly. That is weird.
Didn't DeepSeek kind of undermine the whole premise that you needed all this power?
Yeah, I thought
and
they
that you
owned
needed these chips?
That's true.
Why is that not part of the discussion now? I don't get it.
I guess they already had the venue booked. They already had the bar paid for it. So, fuck it. Yeah. For Zen's sake, Hasbara Hal was what we call the AI alignment problem. It was a perfect demonstration, but people don't make the mental transfer to, fuck humans in general. It's just a small step, actually. Yep. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. I'm guessing Sabra shoots hummus from her tits. That's good. Good one.
She has some kind of super strength, and she can fly, and I think she has like invulnerability.
Oh, interesting. You accidentally put someone's comment up. It's been on for screen for 10 minutes at least. Yeah, I saw that. You got some crazy Rumble comments stuck on screen. In Rumble Studio, I must have hit a button, and it was like somebody telling somebody else to fuck off back to hell. It was on the screen for like 7 or 8 minutes.
That's going to make for some interesting clips,
Yeah, well, no, I'll blur it out. I'll blur it out on the stream version when we end the show, and I'll blur it out of the clips, too, because, that would be too distracting. To have that on the screen. Yep, gotcha, Nocturnal Human. Thank you for that. Oh, yeah, these are already there. Beautiful. Okay. All right. Mark Pugliese, thanks for the $5. Russ, I had the same reaction. We have become one giant Pottersville. There you go. Yep. JD, thanks for the $5. Romani E.T. Domum. How do you say that? I don't know how to say that. Ryan, thanks for the €20. You retracted your message, but you gave us a donation, so thank you, Ryan. Gilgamesh, what's up, Gilgamesh? Thanks for the $2. Trump sent bombs to Ukraine as president. Absolutely, yep. He did agitate.
Yep.
He did agitate in that direction, no doubt. That was one of the examples where I think, he, I never like the excuse that his advisors told him to do it. To me, that's not an excuse. To me, if you're a leader, you dictate policy to your advisors. You don't let them dictate it to you. Right. Yeah, right. So I'm not saying that as an excuse, but I do think that was something he was just told was the right thing to do, and he just lazy fuck that he is didn't bother questioning it. Yeah. Not an excuse, but like I don't think if he had his druthers that this would have ever started. All right, let's move on. All right, so we got 2 more segments on the day. All right, folks. So remember, we did a while back, we covered one of Candace Owens' more passionate monologues in defense of the Palestinians in Gaza. And we wondered, well, would she call out Trump directly if and when it came to it after Inauguration Day? And to her credit, seems we now have our answer. So this is tweeted out from RBT Low 777. Thanks for catching this clip. This was taken from one of her recent live streams. Here she is offering a pretty harsh criticism of Trump's buy Gaza plan, or now just take Gaza plan. Now he's saying we won't have to buy it, we'll just take it.
Of them calling everybody anti-Semitic who noticed that an ethnic cleansing was taking place. We're just now getting to the point, which is an ethnic cleansing is going to take place. We're going to just move millions of bodies. And now we're going to try to emotionally engineer the public to think that it's acceptable by saying, well, there's nothing left. Our bombs bombed it all. Why would they want to go back there? There's nothing left, which we have on tape, Bibi Netanyahu saying that before October 7th. Him caught on tape saying we have to make the punishment so severe and so harsh that the Palestinians won't want to go back because there's nothing there. He said this, okay? I showed it on my show and I didn't care about the figurative bullets that were coming my way because those bullets were figurative and they weren't real. And what I saw in terms of the kids being target practiced on in Gaza made me sick to my stomach. And so one of the other favored lies about me in the media is that I agree with everything Trump says and he does. And I could not disagree more with this. I could not have been more vocal in my lack of support for any person who, whether left or right, who claims to be a good and a compassionate person who is okay with what is happening and what they are saying they're going to do. All statements which are on record before October 7th even happened. And in terms of Trump talking about the real estate of the property, saying they have to go, and Jared Kushner was on tape speaking about how much worth the property could be. And so for those of us who said, are there people who have already invested in this property and want to see it being built up because they are going to make a ton of money because the plan is to move these people from their homeland somewhere else? And we were called conspiracy theorists, and we were called Jew haters, and we were called anti-Semites. This is truly a moment of vindication, okay? It is a moment of vindication, and I do not agree with it at all. Not at all. And now they're saying that the UK should take these people. And this just puts us on that circle. You know, it really is just.
Okay, so now she goes to another place where now she starts bringing in an argument about migration and immigration, which is pretty good too.
It's loony. You have the people in the UK and other countries going, I don't recognize my country. Why don't I recognize my country? Why is this country becoming majority Muslim population? And they don't want to connect the dots and say, well, you know which country is not becoming majority population, just seems to be expanding its borders all the time? Israel. And we keep fighting their wars or funding their wars. We haven't stopped doing that. So as they become more ethnocentric, as they keep getting more land, as they keep having strict rules about who is allowed to commute there, our countries are looking very different. Why would they want to stay home? Because they recognize where they are. So if you're going to build it big and you're make it beautiful, Trump, let them stay there while you do it. It's evil. If the theme of what we have been talking about are perfect acts of evil, what has happened to the children and the women of Palestine who had nothing to do with October 7th is a perfect act of evil. And I will not support it. I don't care which friendships have to burn, which invites I won't get, okay? I will not support it because I am a Christian.
That's pretty good.
Boom.
That is pretty strong. That is pretty strong. And that speaks to, you know, a strength that I think the left brings to the world now, because, you know, she is a rarity on the right. In fact, she alone on the right really speaks out like that. I mean, you really don't have anybody on the right speaking out like that on this issue, especially making the connection. Hey, if you're going to complain that, you know, London isn't as white as you think it should be, then why do you support bombing campaigns in the Middle East, which of course caused this kind of displacement? Now, of course, you know, on the left, we're not.
You think they want to live there?
Things. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Have you tried the food?
Have you tried the food? Yeah.
No, believe me, these people who are used to spicy, rich cuisine do not want to go live in England.
Middle Eastern food is delicious. English food is terrible. Right. So, so to make that link, especially, you know, someone right of center, like on the left, we don't bother making those arguments that often until we encounter more right-wing arguments about that, and then we kind of bring it up out of necessity. But, you know, migration is obviously a huge issue in right-wing politics. And so it was good that she made that link. And it's good that she, you know, rebuked this Trump plan as loudly as she did, because this is one of the very few, you know, Russ talked about, you know, the left being decimated, and the left is decimated. But this is one issue where we can show the world, hey, you know what? We were right on this. Like, we had this right. You can't say we were wrong on this. And, you know, a lot of people on the right are coming around. Here's Sean Strickland, the MMA fighter. Man, if Trump keeps this BS up, I'm about to start waving a Palestinian flag. American cities are shitholes, and you want to go spend billions on this dumpster fire. This is in response to the $7 billion that Trump is going to send to Israel now. Did we make a mistake? This isn't America first. Polling on Trump's plan to take over Gaza, really bad. Really bad. Voters opposed Trump's proposal to take over and own Gaza and forcibly resettle its residents. So among all voters, only 27% of Americans support his plan to do that. only 46% of Republicans support his plan, which unfortunately is a plurality, but it's still a pretty even divide amongst Republicans. Among Democrats, obviously 85-10, which you really can't take their opinions all that seriously because they will just basically oppose whatever the Republican says and answer yes to whatever the Democrat says. But really, where you look, the most meaningful figure in this case is the fact that, A, the Republicans are kind of evenly split on it, but also if you look at the independents, 63-23. 63% of independents oppose Trump's Gaza plan, which shows that the issue is a strong one for the left, and it is an issue that we can tout when it comes to building much needed credibility on this issue, because this at this point is going to be a long game. Justice for Palestine is going to be a very, very long game and a long haul, and it's something that I'm certainly committed to for as long as I am here on this earth. And so taking this and running with this and building on this and never stop talking about this, never stop protesting on this issue, we are, in the end, going to win justice for what has happened. I do not think liberation for Palestine in the short term, I hate to say this, I don't think that is in the cards because of this psychopathic, evil foreign policy establishment, first represented by Biden in this instance, now by Trump. But I do think we are winning the argument. And just for a quick counterpoint here, the majority of Israelis support the Gaza plan. What is this? Oh, Netanyahu caught off guard. Oh, they're being played. Oh, my God, Trump's playing 5D chess. No, Israeli support to relocate Gaza population. 65% support relocation. 14% say support it only if they voluntarily relocate, which I don't understand that opinion. And then obviously 16% say no. And for another counterpoint, here's Jesse Waters making the other right-wing case, the counterpoint to Candace Owens here, saying Palestinians are a demographic threat to Israel because they have more babies.
This population in Palestine is hostile, it's uneducated, it's even more radicalized than they were at the beginning of this. I mean, now they have no homes at all. They're even more hateful of the Israelis. And their birth rate is explosive. The average Palestinian woman has 5.5 babies. The average Israeli woman has only 2.5 babies. So demographically, they're a threat, not to mention the national security threat. There is no way you can have these two peoples living side by side.
Interesting.
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 By interesting, I mean overt Nazism here at 5 o'clock hour on Fox News. So you have what Candace Owens said, and then you have just outright Nazism. Those are the two schools of thought represented on the right. And so we should absolutely use this issue to drive a wedge between the right-wing coalitions to try and build more momentum towards, yes, a free Palestine, but of course, justice for what has happened. The numbers are on our side. Even Candace Owens feels emboldened to go after Donald Trump on this. That says something. It shows that we are winning this argument. And the more we win this argument, the easier it becomes to boycott, to divest, and to sanction Israel. And that has to be the long-term goal. And what you're seeing now suggests that there is a lot of public sentiment in our favor, and there is definitely momentum that could be built in that direction.
What I'm seeing with MAGA, and I think this could have been predicted by what I observed at MAGA events, they're not down with this whole Israel thing, but they'll tolerate it as they did.
They continue to.
So what I would see when you would have these Orthodox Jewish, and not all Orthodox people are for this, but you would have Orthodox holding up, Zionist signs and Israeli flags. A lot of Orthodox actually don't believe Israel should be there because the Messiah hasn't come to lead Jews back and fulfill the prophecy. But some of them support it. And the MAGA people were not like, yeah, our brother. They were like, all right, they're here.
Right.
What are you going to do?
Right.
The boss wants them. What are you going to do? And now you're seeing that carry over, because when you raise Trump's submission to Israel, to MAGA people now, what I'm finding a lot of them will say is, Palestine's done. Get over it. Right. Get over it. Move on. Don't mess with my high, man. I'm getting tired of winning. Don't talk about Israel, man.
Well, that's why I'm saying you use this issue to agitate. In other words, don't settle for that. The more you raise this issue, the more we use this issue as a wedge. That's how you agitate for, issues, and that is how you make that position untenable. Force a conversation, constantly force a conversation. Don't let them say, "Well, it's in the past." It's one thing of many. We see it all over our space now. We see it all over our space now.
Of course.
Oh yeah, no. Tulsi
Tulsi
says that Joe Biden's been too soft on Gaza for fear of being called an Islamophobe. That's terrible, but
Russiagate.
Yeah. I was Russiagated 7 years ago, and so whatever.
Yep.
Price of doing business. You see that a lot.
A lot. A lot. This is where the fact that the left is so weak can feel very hopeless, because there is no party with any institutional power that is going to take up the cause of the Palestinians in any meaningful way. You're seeing right now some of the libs all of a sudden decided that they have a problem with the way the U.S. is conducting itself in Palestine after, of course, 4 years of complete silence on the subject. But you're not seeing the Democrats raising it. You're not seeing Hakeem Jeffries saying anything about it. You're not seeing Schumer say anything about it.
Nope.
So there is absolutely no political representation for that point of view, even now. And that is the challenge and the opportunity. There is an opportunity there to build an outside left force, because there is no political party representing that point of view. But part of what we have to really think through, possibly through the vehicle of Workers Strike Back, which is coming up very soon, is, as has often been said, the Democratic Party is a graveyard for radical movements. You can't allow the movement to become co-opted by the Democratic Party. Like, really, you have to have the objective of destroying and burning that party down.
Yes, and that work is almost done, thankfully. So
they've done most of it for you already.
Yeah, they've done most of it for you. They've really set you up pretty good in that respect. All right, Kenman G. Since Sabro works from Assad, will Jeffrey Epstein make an appearance? Perhaps Rappaport with makeup, and Margulies as Maxwell. Thank you, Sparky. Thanks for the $5. Tim Pool can no longer be classified as alternative media. He's been deep-throating Ben Shapiro for a couple of years now. Thank you, Sparky. Will there be a West Side Story production by Russell on his tour? Well, we will be on the West Side.
Boy, cool.
Yeah.
Boy.
Low light recovery. Respect. Took guts to say what y'all did about Gaza. Hard to find actual adversarial press. Treat yourself to a carton of eggs. Thank you. $10. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, just hit a new high.
Yeah. Yep. The next Israeli talking point will be that child was a doombot. Thank you, Siddhartha Vicious. Appreciate that. Kemen G, I would rather watch a baby nap for 24 hours than watch Long Legs again. Really hated it. I understand completely why it was polarizing. I do understand why people hate. It's not like the movie where like somebody says, well, I don't like this. You're like, really? How could you not like it? No, I totally understand why a lot of people didn't like it. Because it definitely, I mean, maybe Gilgamesh will call in on Sunday. We'll talk about it. But it definitely takes a turn 2/3 of the way through that originally I myself was kind of like, really? Is this where you're going to go? But I thought the third act was so well executed that it really didn't matter. I kind of went with it, and I did like it, and I did like the last scene very much. I think it was a great callback to an earlier moment that kind of seemed irrelevant. So it told a story. It told a story. It's not a masterpiece.
It went on a journey.
It was good. Yeah, it was good. It's not a, people are saying this is the next Silence of the Lambs. No, it was not that. It's not a masterpiece, not even close. But it was good. I'm glad I watched it. I was entertained. Made an impression. Eric Rousseau, I vote for sending Fauci to a Russian gulag. Thank you,
All right. Hang on. While we're on break, I got to read you this. So listen to this text. Going to the defending institutions. Chris Murphy here. I recently joined a protest outside U.S. aid, and it's urgent that you know what Trump and Elon Musk are doing here. I know this may not seem like a crisis, because this agency doesn't get the attention of one like the State Department. But what's happening is the first step in ceding America's influence in the world, creating a void for Russia and China to fill. This is what I mean. They have no idea how to shift gears.
Right. That is a defense of the institution. That is geared toward the Atlantic subscriber.
Exactly.
Who's already voting for you.
Right.
Your defense is, hey, while they're doing all this and creating, moral panics about drag shows in foreign countries, they're stiffing farmers here on their contracts. That's where you focus. That's where you have to focus if you're going to fight back. They have no idea how to do that. It would never even occur to them to do that.
No.
Yeah. You caught me. Like Monty Python's working class playwright as USA treasurer, I suffered from debilitating writer's cramp from signing checks made out to do dissidents. Thank you, Sparky. Appreciate that. Doc Durkin, Candace got some balls. Trump, meanwhile, begs for more eggs up his ass from Israel and Bibi. No sphincter pushback whatsoever from the president. Thank you, Doc Durkin. Appreciate that very much. Okay, we got one more segment on the day, and then we'll take our remaining super chats and Rumble rants. Here we go. Last one.
All right. This video was forwarded to us by our longtime viewer, A. Chud.
Right, yes.
This is Summer Lee, who I will grant you is an absolutely ridiculous person. Absolutely ridiculous. So she went up and going to what we were just talking about with Chris Murphy making a fundraising plea based on protecting U.S. aid. On the other side, they still cannot formulate a response to Donald Trump other than yelling ists, phobes, supremacists, just absolutely nothing else. They seem to be allergic to the word class, literally allergic to it.
Supremacy is rampant in this country. Just look at the current administration and our own legislative body. They have contributed to the social and economic harms, to racial terror Black folks have experienced in this country. Now, more than ever, we must acknowledge and repair those harms.
Now, it's easy to point and laugh at Summer Lee, who, as the House burns down around her, still just wants to direct the conversation to divisive perspectives and framing on race. However, when you get used to just fighting the libs and their identity politics excesses, it's very easy to miss the fact that there is an element of what she's talking about in the Republican Party. She doesn't talk about it well. She's probably not even talking about the real elements that are there. And if she did, she would just use it to push destructive and divisive agendas and not really address it in a meaningful way anyway. All that having been said, I think it's easy to get into a habit because of people like Summer Lee of just reflexively dismissing any claims like that about what MAGA is and the Trump movement. I don't think it's most rank and file people in MAGA, but does this conglomeration of oligarchs and their enablers play footsie with white supremacist groups and ideologies with a wink and a nod and a say no more, say no more? Do they do a lot of that? Yeah, of course they do. For example, why on earth would you appoint this guy to the State Department, even in a temporary capacity, if you were not trying to signal to the folks over at Stormfront, yeah, don't worry, we're with you guys. Don't worry about all the brown people in the cabinet. We actually like what you have to say. Trump
There aren't even that many brown people in the cabinet.
There aren't even that many. And this is something that I think a lot of people miss. You know, when we did our epic Daryl Cooper trilogy, a lot of people would say, what are you talking about? He's for Israel, and he's for the Palestinians, and he's for... Hey, man, the KKK set up a meeting with Malcolm X. This idea, yeah, I'm fine with them. They should have their own place. That is a very old point of view among supremacist peoples. And in fact, it's very common, as Shama would be the first to point out and did with her caste legislation. It's very common among Indian people, actually. They like supremacy, a supremacist point of view doesn't have to be white. That's part of what people like Summerlee miss. That's part of what's so facile about their analysis. They would present to you a world that does not exist, where you got heteronormative white people and then everybody else. And the world is not that simple. But moving along. So this guy, why would you appoint this guy if you're not trying to give a wink and a nod to Nazis? Why would you do that? A Trump State Department official has, on a number of occasions, called for the sterilization of low IQ trash, a new report has revealed. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has appointed Darren Beattie to be the acting undersecretary for public diplomacy and public affairs, a senior role that represents American foreign policy to the world. Now, interestingly, you want to see how much Zionism is really compatible with a Nazi ideology. This guy describes himself as a proud Jew. Actually, he's a proud Jew. Alumni of Duke University and the University of Chicago. I'm sure they're very proud. So here's some of his...
Duke University, not the
David
other.
I didn't mean the other one.
Yeah, not the other one.
We don't want to get sued here.
Yeah.
So here's some of his bangers. Higher quality humans are subsidizing the fertility of lower quality humans. Foundational reality of social and political life in the post-war West. And here he quote tweeted himself. Population control, if only. The hierarchy of taboos is interesting. The horrific practice of second trimester abortion is legal in some places and well within Overton window of public discourse. But idea of offering feral populations,
Jesus Christ,
financial incentives for voluntary sterilization is completely taboo. Okay, so this was in response to a tweet. Atlanta police respond to reports of a shooting, but the locals don't want a white cop in their neighborhood, and there was a video. So he quote tweeted it. When a population gets feral, a little snip keeps things in control. Could offer incentives, Air Jordans, etc. Interesting moral universe we live in where abortion is celebrated, but the notion of giving smart people incentives or cash to start families is so far out of Overton window, no sitting politician of either party would dare advocate it. And here he's again quote tweeting from Bronze Age Pervert. I'd like to see just once one of these dissident social conservatives propose sane family planning legislation, such as a 50% tax on single moms below an IQ testing threshold, or otherwise mandatory labor, and a $100K bounty for high IQ parents producing a child, married or not. And he responds, how is this not a no-brainer? Pay smart people to have more kids, disincentivize stupid people from having kids. So simple, but molds destiny on deep intergenerational level. Going back to the article, Beattie previously served, part of the problem with his whole premise, even if you setting aside the moral questions, DNA is not that simple. It's not that simple. If you did follow a program like that, a lot of unlikely geniuses who are born to unremarkable parents would be wiped out of the gene pool. Beatty previously served as a speechwriter for Trump, but he was fired in 2018 after he spoke at a conference attended by white nationalists. So it's not like this stuff is not on their radar. He was literally fired in the past from the Trump White House. They very well know exactly who this guy is. He has backed repressive crime policies and often spoken in support of the Chinese government, according to Notice. China Shill's going to be very confused about this segment. Meanwhile, Rubio has in the past spoken out against such population control policies advocated by Beatty, including calling China's previous one-child policy a grotesque violation of basic human rights.
Well, that's what he likes about China, is that.
Right, exactly. Because they're controlling their population.
Right.
Following his Senate confirmation last month, Rubio, I'm teasing China Shill. I'm teasing him. Rubio told State Department employees that, quote, all men are created equal because our rights come from God, our creator. Comments at odds with Beatty's statement about some people being trash.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah. I'd say so.
Beatty's posts often focus on race, and he has derided different groups. A couple more bangers from him. So here, this was a video. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced plans to immediately deport African migrants after hundreds were involved in brawling and rioting in Tel Aviv over the weekend. He says a red line had been crossed by the infiltrators. This is about a month before October 7th. Could literally just round them up and drop them in the ocean. Let the human rights groups whine. Drop them in the ocean too. It's not politically correct to say, but low IQ, low impulse.
Oh, no.
Low, you think? Low impulse control populations lack higher reasoning and moral faculties. They require strict corporal punishment and threat of violence to function properly within a society. Instead of anarcho-tyranny, we need Singapore for the dumb and violent and Sweden for the more elevated. Prevalence of fight videos. Now, fans of the Fast and Furious franchise, trigger warning. Third world low IQ sucker punch fights over nothing with dumb animal spectators jumping up and down in excitement. The same low IQ trash who watch the Fast and Furious franchise. Beginning to wish the whole population reduction conspiracy were true. Are you seeing a kind of pattern to the bent of his thinking?
Yeah, just overt racism over and over again.
I mean, he's a literal Nazi.
Yeah,
that is literally the eugenic philosophies of the Third Reich.
Right.
And just to anticipate, those were American ideas. Yeah, we know. Ford was very big on those ideas. Margaret Sanger was very big on those ideas. So no, it's not just a German fetish. Last week, Rubio told reporters that Beatty was chosen for the post by the Trump transition team. He added that Beatty would be focusing on fighting censorship. You can't make it up. Here's just a couple more from him. Competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. Unfortunately, our entire national ideology is predicated on coddling the feelings of women and minorities and demoralizing competent white men. This is very recent. This is about a month before the election.
That was his closing pitch.
That was his closing pitch for the job.
Yeah.
Middle class and working class white men are treated far worse in America than Uyghurs are in China. All right, so he doesn't like China in that sense. He's buying into the Uyghur thing that a lot of our people object to. I'm Switzerland on that one. Trump appears to backtrack on tapping white nationalists for key role. So this broke overnight. That I guess somebody called him and said, So, your transition team put a literal Nazi at the State Department, Donald. What do you mean? Because okay, to be fair, I'm sure Trump does not micromanage these kinds of decisions in that way. According to Semaphore, Trump appears to have thought better of this. He is now nominating Sarah Rogers, a New York attorney who has defended the National Rifle Association on free speech grounds and litigated against content moderation, per the report. She, quote, will replace Darren Beatty, an outspoken and divisive MAGA figure who is acting in the role. Beatty, who was never expected to take the role on a permanent basis, had courted controversy in the past for associating with extreme figures and espousing foreign policy views at odds with Secretary of State Marco Rubio's hawkishness. Okay, so in other words, he got the appointment as a temporary appointment, but when they put in for the actual permanent role, they didn't put him in. They put in Sarah Rogers. However, he's not out. He's still in this position. Not sure that says he is out, just that he won't take that particular role. He could be performing the duties of the undersecretary for several months, depending on the pace of the nomination proceedings. So, hey, do people like Summer Lee dishonestly distort and look for racism where it isn't in order to exploit it as an issue? And does the Democratic Party do that generally? Absolutely. Absolutely. At the same time, it's very disingenuous to say there's no there. There is absolutely no reason to appoint an absolutely psychopathic Nazi punk like this to any position in your government other than to signal to people who are aligned with these views that you're with them.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it is, it is prevalent. I mean, when you go online, I mean, there's no doubt about it. And this is why I'm saying that, now, post-inauguration, I'm sorry, like a lot of MAGA has proven a lot of their more Libby critics to be more or less correct in their evaluation that this is really what matters first and foremost. I mean, the meltdown over the halftime show, where people called Kendrick Lamar's halftime show a DEI halftime show.
Right.
Why?
Right.
Why would you say? And that was everybody.
Right. What does that mean?
Everybody has that out. What does that mean? And that was not. I mean, it was a rap show. That's what it was. Like I thought it was kind of average. Like I know some of his stuff. I don't know all of it or even most of it. I think he's very good. But I didn't love the halftime show. But I didn't hate the halftime show. And it was certainly not a subversive halftime show. It wasn't like he went out there to trigger the chuds. You know what I mean? Like, it was what you would expect a rap show to be at halftime of a Super Bowl. And that was all the guys' worst halftime show ever. It's a DEI halftime show. Like, yeah, that seems to be the glue that really holds them together. And that those seem to be the issues that they really enjoy agitating around. And you see that in the DOGE stuff. You see, I mean, that they are using identity politics, going back to one of our super chats about Shama and identity politics and things like that. This is a perfect example of how the professional class right uses identity politics to divide people and manufacture consent for draconian economic crackdowns on populations. Because, yes, this is at the inauguration, the uproar over the bishop, right? It's all culture war. It's all culture war. MAGA is mostly a culture war movement at this point. This point, that's why DOGE is as popular as it is. That's why there's such little resistance to it. Because, look, right-wing moral panics are, a staple of American history, from the Salem witch trials to the war on drugs, right? And this is, just another one. They traffic in this
Will
all
someone
the time.
think about the white South Africans?
Right. They traffic in this all the time, and it is very effective. And yes, I think it does have to be resisted, as a tool of division wherever it rears its head. But yeah, look, there's no question about it. There's no question about it. And that's what has made these past few weeks kind of, I won't say disappointing, because I expected it. But I do think the disproportionate focus on these cultural issues from MAGA, while at the same time they're gutting the NLRB, at the same time they're gutting the CFPB, at the same time they're talking about a takeover of Gaza, at the same time they're talking about going after Social Security, Medicare, disability. Like, you're seeing the distraction happen in real time, and there is just such a fervor. There is such a fervor around these culture war issues that it's impossible to really shed the amount of light on the more substantive pieces, that you really feel you have to, because, as you said, the left is in shambles right now. The left is completely powerless right now.
Right.
And how do you get to a point where you could start building, because you need some raw materials to build with, right? And if so much of the conversation is just absorbed by this, it makes it very hard. And that's the point of it.
Yep.
That's the point of it. And the Democrats absolutely use it when they're in power. The Republicans use it when they're in power too. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It is division and distraction. Now, Summer Lee talks about reparations. I'm actually for reparations, and I don't think reparations is just a culture war issue. But notice she talks about reparations when the Democrats aren't in power. Right. When they're in power, they don't talk about those things, because they know it's not going to happen, and they don't want to cause problems for the president. Right. California, same thing. It went too far, so Newsom had to embarrass his own party by not following through. So it is a tool of division and distraction, and it absolutely exists. It exists everywhere.
Well, that's what I would say, regardless of what you think about reparations. Right. That's not why she's talking about reparations. It's because they have absolutely no other vocabulary to be in opposition with. They have no concept of class and economics-based rhetoric. They only have this. And because of it, it's become the boy who cries wolf. Nobody wants to listen to them when they say racism anymore, even though this is a legit issue. They should be talking about that. They should say exactly what I just said. If you want to talk about this at all, show that. Show what I just showed. Show the tweets of the. Why did they appoint this man? Who are they trying to please by appointing this man? What other explanation could you have than that they are signaling to white fascist supremacist groups that they're with them? What other reason could you possibly have? If you're going to talk about it at all, you would talk about it that way. You wouldn't go and do the anti-racism and the supremacist society. That's it. At that point, that's part of how these guys came into power. That's part of why they can get away with this. Because even if you bring it up, no one wants to hear it anymore.
Yes. Yep. Indeed. All right. Let's see. MMB, Kellogg was exposed in Garland Nixon's reporting that Kellogg was a swamp war dog per his daughter's regime change NGOs that funded his visit through the Weatherman Foundation and may have baby dropped because of it. He always seemed very hawkish, but then again, Rubio does too. So yeah, it was a little odd that he was nixed, but yeah, that could be onto something there. Thank you for the donation. Brad Gilbert, thanks for the $2. DeepSeek is the Sputnik propaganda for the AI race. Kate, thanks for the $1.99. Tucker hosted pro-Palestine priest in Bethlehem. Yes, he did. Gunther Isaac. Yep, I remember that interview. We covered that. Zachary Morrison, thanks for the $10. Be sure to check out A Dangerous Idea, Eugenics, Genetics, and the American Dream, directed by Stephanie Welch documentary, which gets into the history and bad science of the eugenics in the U.S. Thank you, Zachary. Appreciate that very much. Okay, Furrow Squeen, going to see that film about September 5th tomorrow, and I've been told I don't want to hear you saying killed Jews every 5 minutes. My mom's propaganda. I said it's Israel I don't like, not Jews. Oh, so somebody thinks Somebody thinks, wait, what film? What film about September 5th? Oh, is that what? What's up, Sawyer? I am almost done. I'm getting done in 2 minutes. All right. Let's see here. Sparky, uneducated. I read somewhere a while back, Palestinians in Gaza have the highest concentration of PhDs in the world. Lack of work leaves them time for education. Is your boy Jesse Waters wrong? Yeah, of course. Of course, Sparky. Thank you. And actually, Israel, as, Max Blumenthal points out, Israel, has targeted a lot of the sort of cultural leaders in Palestine, a lot of the best artists, poets, and academics. Right. Yes, right. Genocide of the culture in that way. He tasks me, and I shall have him. I'll chase him round the moons of Nibia and round the Antares maelstrom and around perdition's flames before I give him up. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. A lot of us Aspies have high IQs. I know they will want to cull us out of the population. Anyways, thanks, XEF Rousseau. Did you change your name? That's XEF Rousseau, and the other one is just EF Rousseau. All right, folks, that is our show today. Appreciate you all being here. We are off the next couple of days. We will be back this Sunday at 7 p.m. I guess Shama's coming on Sunday. That's the plan, so we'll have a fun show for you then. And then Russ is off to Seattle. So thank you all very much for being here. Appreciate that. Smash that like button on the way out. Smash that subscribe button, that follow button over on Rumble. And we will see you guys in a few days, Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Until then, thanks for today. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.